Chapter 601. After being reprimanded by Kitty Lee, Yiqing Luo regained her senses as she gave Kitty Lee a smile. "It's my fault, I've made you guys worried." Dmo Xian, who was still in battle, also shot a worried gaze over. "Sister, Childine is not really invincible. All the beasts have their Achilles heel." Kitty Lee puffed her cheeks, apparently still angry. But she knew that now wasn't the time to be angry. Kitty Lee's lively eyes blinked. "Sister, I'll help you." Saying that, Kitty Lee had already turned into a black remnant image. She arched her body and like an agile kitten, she speedily shuttled around Childine. When Yiqing Luo heard that, she congealed her senses and raised the feather fan in her hands, adjusting her own rhythm as she launched a new round of attacks. High-leveled mirage beasts also had their Achilles heel. No matter how strong Childine was, as long as they found its weak point, they would be able to target that point and deal with it. That black-cloaked man should be an extremely troublesome person. Even Dmo Xian found it hard to deal with that person. No wonder that person was able to control 7th-level high-leveled mirage beasts. The current her was to congeal to deal with Childine. She mustn't bring any burden to Dmo Xian, and also mustn't let the world group's youngsters lose their confidence. Achilles heel. She would definitely be able to find it. Kitty Lee's speed was extremely fast. She who had a cat beast's physique, in some aspects, was extremely similar to a cat. After a few somersaults and leaps, she had already arrived behind Childine. That slender jade-like hand, in a blink of an eye, her nails became extremely long, sharp and curved like hooks. That claw of hers grabbed onto Childine's tail without any hesitation. Childine, which was the size of a mountain, its tail was naturally as thick as a tree. After Kitty Lee grabbed onto its tail, she used all her strength to pull it. Not too long later, Kitty Lee's palm was filled with a pile of fur. Kitty Lee's claw struck down and that sharp hook pierced into Childine's flesh. Yiqing Luo was watching by the side as she shuddered. Oh my god. No wonder he was a beast human with cat beast's bloodline, to be able to change any part of his body into a beast race's form. A beast's tail was indeed a fatal Achilles heel. But Childine's weak point didn't seem to be his tail. When Kitty Lee's claws came down, Childine actually swung its tail and directly used its tail to lift Kitty Lee's petite body up as it kept on swinging her around in mid-air. There were lush trees all around, and this fall naturally knocked into those trees. Luckily Kitty Lee was agile and her claws grabbed onto Childine's tail as she climbed up agilely. Childine's tail swept across the trees and the surroundings rumbled continuously. Not the tail. When the few of them saw that, they immediately increased the speed of their attacks, attempting to divert Childine's attention away from Kitty Lee. After all, Kitty Lee was just a little girl. Even if he was fast, nimble, and strong, he would not be able to withstand it. But in the eyes of Xiao Jin and the rest, Kitty Lee was like a little sister. The few of them kept releasing their Xian Qi. However, Childine only stared at Kitty Lee, who was still sprawled on him. Although its tail was not its Achilles heel, compared to other parts of its body, it was its bottom line. This human who was emitting a cat stench not only used her claws to cut its tail, she even attempted to chop off its tail. How could Childine not only stare at Kitty Lee? Whereas to it, the others were merely tickling. Chapter 602. In a moment of desperation, she didn't aim at Childine's neck, but directly shot towards its eyes. The eyes were the weakest part of humans. Naturally, it was the weakest part of beasts. Yiqing Luo didn't believe that this Childine was so powerful that it could train its entire body into an impenetrable copper and iron wall. Childine's attention was focused on Kitty Lee. It was because it was overly confident of itself, so towards Yiqing Luo's attack, it had no reaction at all. Those strands of silver threads kept on revolving, like silver needles, as one after another shot directly into its copper bell-sized eyes. Roar, 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 a sharp howl instantly reverberated throughout the entire magic beast forest. Yes, the entire magic beast forest was eerily cold, and because of this howl, the earth quaked and the mountain swayed violently. Blood spurted out from its eyes. Childine was in so much pain that it grimaced in pain, as it raised its hand and broke those strands of silver threads which had pierced into its eyes. Child Yin's reaction was swift, and it only got pierced in one eye, as it avoided the other eye's silver threads. While Childine was howling in pain, Kitty Lee speedily leapt down from its body, as she returned to Yi Qing Luo's side. Roar, 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 a fierce roar that was filled with raging anger rang out. That eye, which was filled with blood, was scarlet red. The other eye was also emitting scarlet fury. These people had completely infuriated it. The ground shook as the mountains shook. Following Child Yin's howl, those magical beasts which were battling with the other youngsters all started to howl as well. In a split second, the entire forest was filled with waves of magical beasts' howls. One after another, it was especially ear-piercing. Yi Qing Luo's body, which was suspended in mid-air, suddenly swayed, as she almost fell down. She couldn't help but creased her brows tightly, as her slender hand covered her chest. A fishy sweetness surged up her throat, as though it was about to gush out from her mouth. Lass! Circulate your profound jade heart's profound chi, protect your heart meridians. By her ear, Old Man Song's anxious voice rang hazily. Yi Qing Luo took a deep breath, as her eardrums felt a piercing pain. Not only her. Quite a few of the youths around him had already vomited blood from the howls of the magical beasts. These magical beasts were all mid to high-level magical beasts. Coupled with a high-level mirage beast, if they howled in unison, it would be easy for a low-level profound practitioner's internal organs to rupture and die from this howl. Brothers, protect your heart. Yi Qing Luo heaved a sigh of relief and reprimanded in her delicate voice. But after this howl, Yi Qing Luo was like a puppet with a broken string, falling straight down from the sky. Fortunately, Kitty Lee was by his side. As a beast man, she was not affected by the howls of the beasts. She speedily supported Yi Qing Luo, and her hand, which had already returned to normal, gently placed on the back of Yi Qing Luo's hand, which was pressing on her chest. Cat! Yi Qing Luo was surprised. A warm feeling slowly flowed into Yi Qing Luo's heart. That source wrapped around her heart and harmonized with her profound jade heart. The sharp pain in his eardrums and the sweet taste in his throat finally subsided. Just as Yi Qing Luo heaved a sigh of relief, a scorching feeling suddenly arose in her heart, as though a raging fire was burning. Kitty Lee, who was transferring her profound chi, suddenly retracted her hand, as though she was scalded, as she looked at her own palm in disbelief. It was still fair, but that scorching pain still remained in her palm. What was going on? Kitty Lee stared at Yi Qing Luo in astonishment, seeing her slender brows knitted into a bundle, as her delicate body kept twisting, as though she was in extreme pain. Chapter 603. Sister. Kitty Lee panicked as she called out to Yi Qing Luo. But Yi Qing Luo seemed as though she couldn't hear what she said, as she shut her eyes tightly, writhing in pain in her arms. Yi Qing Luo could no longer hear any sounds from the outside world. She was in so much pain, her entire body was in pain. So painful that it felt like something was expanding from the bottom of her heart, as though it was about to explode, squeezing her. Hundreds of beasts howled one after another, exploding unceasingly in her head. Boom! That howl turned into a ray of white light in her mind. Yi Qing Luo lost all her consciousness as she fainted. Sister! Qing Luo! Kitty Lee, Qiao Jin and the others shouted in unison. Long Yunzhan's figure swayed as he appeared next to Kitty Lee, his azure blue eyes staring intently at Yi Qing Luo. Just as he stretched out his hand to carry Yi Qing Luo from Kitty Lee's arms. His back suddenly felt a chill as the human dragon's perception made Long Yunjian's feet flashed slightly as he evaded. Following that, he saw Dmo Xian's figure flashed past and Yiqing Luo was already in his arms. This lunatic. Long Yunjian's eyes sunk. What are you doing? There was a mysterious dark forces man over there. He just left that person behind and rushed over. Wouldn't that be giving the dark forces a chance to counterattack? Dmo Xian ignored Long Yunjian as his pair of chilly eyes stared at the little woman in his arms. Her face was pale and there was no reaction. No matter how he used his profound qi to probe the condition of her body, it didn't evoke any reaction from her. If it wasn't for the fact that Yiqing Luo's breathing was still smooth. If it wasn't for the fact that Yiqing Luo's brows were still tightly knitted. Dmo Xian almost thought that the person in his arms had already. His slender long fingers were on Yiqing Luo's shoulder as he slowly tightened his grip on her clothes. That peerless face was expressionless as though it was covered with frost, making one feel as though they were in an ice house. Lil Luo, His hoarse voice was filled with worry. Dmo Xian hugged Yiqing Luo tightly as his gaze was fixed on her face, not allowing any other person to enter. Seeing Dmo Xian in this state, Long Yunjian couldn't say anything else. He squinted his azure blue eyes and looked not too far away, at that black-cloaked man who had already returned to stand on Child Yin's shoulder. The black-cloaked man was still wearing a cloak, but it wasn't hard to see that he was in an extremely sorry state. The cloak on his body had already been shredded into several pieces by the profound qi. Even when he was standing on Child Yin's shoulder, he seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. That Child Yin was still howling continuously. Each sound was sharper than the one before. Hundreds of beasts cried out in unison, as if they were responding to the strongest among the beasts. Dmo Xian's thoughts were all placed on Yiqing Luo. The enchantment suddenly disappeared. Child Yin's furious howls and hundreds of beasts' howls were clearly transmitted into Ji Tsang Tian and Lan Ling Nuo's eardrums. Lan Ling Nuo was merely in mystic profound first grade, and when this voice entered her ears, she instantly spat out a mouthful of blood as her delicate body fell limply into Ji Tsang Tian's arms. Sister Nuo. Ji Tsang Tian frantically hugged Lan Ling Nuo tightly as his eyes were filled with heartache. As for those group members who sat by the side and listened to his orders, not leaving the barrier, other than obeying his orders, it was also because their profound grades weren't high and their abilities weren't high, so they were afraid of death, which was why they stayed behind. Now that the barrier had dispersed, these people couldn't take it as they directly spat out blood as they fell onto the ground. There were a few group members whose internal organs were ruptured as they died on the spot. Chapter 604. At this moment, Ji Tsang Tian couldn't be bothered about their gender difference as his palm immediately covered Lan Ling Nuo's chest. The woman's soft chest bumped into his palm. Up and down, it made Ji Tsang Tian's delicate-looking face instantly turn red. The woman in his arms was the woman he loved. How could he not be distracted by this? Tsang, brother Tsang Tian. Lan Ling Nuo's brows creased tightly in pain as she kept twisting her body. She was unable to avoid those continuous beast cries, so she could only seek help from Ji Tsang Tian. The more she moved, the more Ji Tsang Tian's breathing was unable to calm down. He forced himself to hold on to his will and transmitted his profound qi to protect Lan Ling Nuo's heart meridian. The other members who had fallen to the ground were completely disappointed. His team members, his brothers, all had their hearts shattered by the howling of the beasts, and several of them had even died. However, this regiment commander actually did not have the slightest reaction. He didn't even say a word of concern. In his heart, there was only that woman, Lan Ling Nuo. A brother who had risked his life for him was inferior to a woman. How could these team members remain calm in their hearts? Whereas Ji Tsang Tian didn't feel that there was any problem with his way of doing things. In his eyes, Blue Dragon Mercenary Group was established by him alone, so it was natural for these group members to listen to him. Moreover, from today onwards, Lan Ling Nua was their sister-in-law. Naturally, his sister-in-law was the most important. In order to prevent his beastly nature from being triggered by his beloved woman's delicate body, Ji Tsang Tian turned his gaze towards the battlefield. Then, he was stunned. Not only him, the other members of the Blue Dragon Group were all stunned when they saw Yi Qing Luo fainting. Their eyes were filled with astonishment and disbelief. The roar of hundreds of beasts would only affect those with lower mystic ranks. Those who were able to reach the 5th level were mostly in the mystic profound realm and above. He wasn't affected much. In the hearts of these group members, these youngsters in the world group were all top-notch prodigies and experts. However, when the 100 beasts cried out, at least half of the 60-odd people were affected. That also meant to say that at least half of the world group's youngsters were mystic profound grade 5 and below. How was this possible? These youths had a tacit understanding of each other and were ruthless. Moreover, they were able to deal with the high-level magical beasts with ease. No matter what, his profound rank should be above the members of the Blue Dragon Group. What shocked them the most was Yi Qing Luo. Ever since the incident of snatching that bear beast's corpse, Blue Dragon Group's members had already treated Yi Qing Luo as a goddess-like figure. She was strong. He was strong enough to command this powerful mercenary group. Otherwise, how would Yi Qing Luo dare to deal with a high-level mirage beast from the 7th level? That was a high-level magical beast, a magical beast. And it was from the 7th level. But, unexpectedly, Yi Qing Luo's profound grade was only at the mystic profound 4th grade. This rank, in the Blue Dragon Mercenary Group, wasn't the lowest mystic rank, but he definitely couldn't be considered as an expert and could only be placed in the reserve team as a substitute member. But they had no choice but to admit that even if it was Ji Tsang Tian, the group leader, personally going up against Yi Qing Luo in a one-on-one battle, I'm afraid Ji Tsang Tian wasn't able to gain any advantage. In the group members' hearts, the feeling towards Yi Qing Luo was not something that could be described with the word admiration. The current Yi Qing Luo hadn't really fainted. It was pitch black in front of her and a ray of white light flickered, piercing Yi Qing Luo's eyes. She wanted to rub her temples, rubbing her glabella to ease the intense pain. But her body wasn't able to move. Her 4 limbs seemed as though they were shackled as they were extremely stiff. Chapter 605. Her heart was burning like a raging fire. Yi Qing Luo was in unbearable pain. Was she afraid of pain? No. In the past, she had endured the pain of having her flesh cut into her bones and didn't make a sound. But she really couldn't endure this kind of intense pain that squeezed her internal organs and ruptured her eardrums. She wanted to cry out, to vent out this pain. But not only was her body unable to move, even her mouth and throat seemed to be glued. Lass, quickly condense your breath. Stay awake. In her ears, Old Man Tsang's voice seemed to be mixed in with the cries of the beasts. Old Man Tsang kept shouting and shouting, but Yi Qing Luo couldn't hear clearly. Old Man Tsang repeated it over and over again. After a long time, Yi Qing Luo pieced together a complete sentence from the few fragmented words in his words. Yi Qing Luo braced her willpower and followed Old Man Tsang's words, trying hard to condense her breath. Lass, the mother of the profound jade heart is by your side. You only need to control the profound jade heart in your body, the rest. You can only rely on yourself. Old Man Tsang's words made Yi Qing Luo very puzzled. The mother of the profound jade heart. Wasn't it Dmo Xian? Dmo Xian was by her side. Then, what about that black-cloaked man? Why did he let her control the profound jade heart in her body? Countless questions kept revolving in her mind, expanding and almost about to explode. Yiqing Luo couldn't think anymore. A surge of heat surged in her heart and instantly swallowed her consciousness. Ah! A mournful scream overflowed from Yiqing Luo's mouth. Qing Luo! Sister! The few people standing behind Dmo Xian surrounded her and cried out worriedly. They had never heard Yiqing Luo cry out like this. In their hearts, Yiqing Luo had always been a strong girl, strong to the point that she wouldn't cry out in pain. Today when they heard her scream, everyone's heart seemed to be strangled by something. Breathing was difficult. The lady in Dmo Xian's arms had pale lips that were devoid of blood, as blood kept gushing out, causing that extremely pale complexion to add a tinge of bewitching color. Everyone's hearts were trembling. Pairs of hopeful gazes looked towards Dmo Xian. Overlord. He was like a deity, everyone's hope at this moment. The legend of the Nirvana realm, the legendary man. He definitely had a way to save Yiqing Luo. Dmo Xian lowered his eyelids, his curved eyelashes casting a shadow below his eyes. Then, he slowly raised his head and looked at Kitty Lee. Look at her. His eyes were filled with a thick chill. Kitty Lee trembled as she subconsciously walked over and took over Yiqing Luo who was in Dmo Xian's arms. The arch, Xiao Jin realized what Dmo Xian wanted to do and immediately called out to him. But Dmo Xian seemed as though he couldn't hear his voice as he flew towards Child Yin's direction. Xiao Jin chased a few steps forward, but ultimately still stopped. The overlord had pampered Qing Luo in the palm of his hand. Seeing Qing Luo in such a state, the overlord's heart felt worse than anyone else. He wanted to take revenge for Qing Luo. The howls around them continued. Long Yunzhan congealed his senses as he took a deep look at Yiqing Luo. His azure blue eyes were tainted with a chilly glint. Kill. Leave none alive. Leave not a single one alive. Were they going to massacre the 5th level, all the magical beasts who had taken part in this battle? Blue Dragon Group's members all felt that these youngsters had gone mad. Whereas for those youngsters, they clenched their fists tightly as they raised them up. That sonorous and forceful voice kept repeating the same word. Chapter 606. Dmo Xian's sudden attack caused Child Yin, who was still howling in pain, to not notice it at all. That huge mountain-like body fell backwards. The black-cloaked man on his shoulder swiftly leapt up and left Dmo Xian's attack range. Dmo Xian's charming thin lips curled upwards as his eyes were filled with frost, and the attacks in his hands became even more vicious and sharp, pressing towards the black-cloaked man. Earlier when he was battling with the black-cloaked man, Dmo Xian hadn't displayed his full strength. Whereas the current Dmo Xian had apparently started to become serious. The black-cloaked man's original arrogance started to become timid as he fled in all directions. Under the black-cloaked man's summoning, Child Yin speedily climbed up as it stared with its blood-dripping eyes, pouncing towards Dmo Xian. One beast and one man, tangled with each other. Long Yunzhan and the others knew that in this kind of battle, there was no chance for the mortals to interfere. If they allowed this bunch of magical beasts to continue howling, it would affect Yiqing Luo's injuries to a certain extent. He led the world group's youngsters and started killing those howling magical beasts. Yiqing Luo, who was in the abyss of suffering, struggled in pain, trying to break free from this pain. Lil Luo, I respect whatever you think. I will wait for you to walk side by side with me. Suddenly, an extremely pleasant voice sounded in his ears. That voice was mellow like fine wine, deep and clear. Sentence after sentence, it kept calling out her name. Those sentences were sweet and warm, warming one's heart. In a daze, a peerless face appeared in front of her. He looked at her lovingly and gave her an extremely gentle smile. Madam Qing Luo, the one who admires you the most now is Sister Ziqing. Madam Qing Luo, you're the center of devil class. Qing Luo. Immediately following that, familiar faces flashed past her eyes as she heard their voices calling out to her. These people's faces, these people's voices, slowly turned into a warm current, flowing in her heart. Wherever the warm current flowed through, the sharp pain from the tremors gradually disappeared. Even the profound jade heart which was burning in her heart seemed to have been extinguished. That warm current filled her limbs and bones, circulating 1 cycle, 2 cycles. Yiqing Luo became aware of something and immediately controlled her profound jade heart to continuously absorb that warm current, breathing it in and out, lingering around her profound jade heart. That warm current, under Yiqing Luo's control, gradually wrapped around the profound heart jade, forming a round bowl. Following that, Yiqing Luo felt her body suddenly becoming light, like a feather. All the pain had dissipated. His breathing was smooth, and his body was filled with energy. Wave after wave of profound energy flowed continuously within her body. Kitty Li, who was hugging Yiqing Luo, kept transmitting her profound qi in an attempt to awaken Yiqing Luo and protect her heart meridians. However, the profound energy that was transmitted seemed to have fallen into a bottomless abyss, and it didn't receive any response at all. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo's body exploded with an intense light. Immediately following that ray of light directly lifted Yiqing Luo's body into mid-air. Sister! Kitty Li panicked, her hands didn't even manage to hug Yiqing Luo tightly. She could only look on helplessly as Yiqing Luo's body rushed into mid-air. Everyone's gazes were attracted by this dazzling light. Everyone's vision, all congregated over. The lady who was in deep sleep, was surrounded by a violent force, as it kept dancing the lady's long hair which had fallen onto her shoulders. Her fine black hair danced, as though it was floating in a dream. Chapter 607. The crowd looked at the lady in mid-air in astonishment. All the profound qi and that dazzling light surged towards the direction of Yiqing Luo's wrist. Faintly, cherry blossom-like totems could be seen on that slender wrist, which looked extremely flirtatious. What was going on? The youngsters looked at this scene in disbelief. By right, so much profound qi was encircling Yiqing Luo's surroundings. This should be the trend of her advancing. But these profound qi were not like ordinary cultivators who advanced, which was surging towards the cultivator's profound jade heart, but towards the wrist. While the crowd was puzzled, the black-cloaked man who was dealing with Dmo Xian was in a sorry state with injuries all over his body. The cloak on him had long been damaged, leaving only a veil which covered his entire face. That black-cloaked man had also noticed the situation over here. On seeing the cherry blossom totem on Yiqing Luo's wrist, he turned stiff. That was impossible. How could it be in Yiqing Luo's hands? The black-cloaked man stared at that cherry blossom totem in disbelief, as a biting cold glint flashed past his eyes. Gee! After a slight sound came to his ears, the black-cloaked man felt a sharp pain in his chest. The black-cloaked man lowered his eyes and saw a burst of profound qi penetrating through his body from his chest. The black-cloaked man raised his eyes in astonishment and met with a pair of icy cold peach blossom eyes. She is the person whom this lord wants to protect. Even this lord can't bear to hurt her, just based on you dare to lay your eyes on her. The extremely ridiculing words were like frost, directly entering the black-cloaked man's ears. This lord. He was Overlord. The black-cloaked man drew in a breath of cold air. The cloak on his head swayed as it fell onto the ground, revealing a skinny like firewood, completely supported by bones and skin. It looked extremely horrifying. Especially now, the black-cloaked man's eyes were wide open, staring at Dmo Xian in disbelief. It was like a pair of eyeballs, staring straight at Dmo Xian. Only a dead person will keep all secrets. Following Dmo Xian's cold voice, the black-cloaked man's body fell straight down, without any signs of life. Dmo Xian retracted his hand and turned his gaze towards Yiqing Luo, who was floating in mid-air as his brows creased slightly. He was afraid that something big was going to happen. His little Luoer, he had to grow up quickly. The profound qi which encircled Yiqing Luo's body in that dazzling light sped up the encirclement frequency, constantly mixing and colliding. Not long after, all of the profound qi had been absorbed into his wrist. Just as that ray of light disappeared, Yiqing Luo, who was suspended in mid-air, suddenly opened her eyes. Those dazzling, star-like eyes shot out a powerful, sharp blade. A powerful airflow revolved around her body. Chapter 608. Childine. Yiqing Luo gave a delicate cry as she stepped into the air, and the strong airflow beneath her feet kept on spreading. Her charming eyes were filled with chilly intent as she stared straight at Childine as she roared furiously, "Come, fight!" Saying that, she shot up into the sky like an arrow leaving the bow. Roar, roar! Childin's eyes revealed a murderous glint as it stared at this audacious human who dared to pierce its eye. The other eye, which was still intact, was filled with a scarlet murderous intent. Yiqing Luo gave a cold laugh as she clenched her feather fan tightly and launched her attack. The profound qi which revolved around the feather fan and that intense whirlwind was on a totally different level from before. Especially that agile silver thread which covered the sky and earth as it entangled, there was no place to hide at all. Wave after wave of attacks, Yiqing Luo simply became braver as she fought. Childine kept on howling as it avoided Yiqing Luo's attacks. But the current Yiqing Luo's speed was much faster than before. Childine couldn't react at all, and in just a short moment, its body was already filled with big and small wounds. Some of its skin and flesh even started to ooze blood. It was so painful that Childine howled even more miserably. Under Long Yunjian's lead, the surrounding magical beasts had been slaughtered, and there were still 20 over of them. These magical beasts were facing such a swift and fierce team, so how could they follow Childine to howl out? Even if they could howl, there were only 20 over of them left, so they were unable to create the kind of shock earlier. The current Yiqing Luo's body was as light as a feather. She felt that her breathing was getting smoother and smoother as her body became lighter and her speed became faster and faster. Even if she didn't display that set of footwork, her current speed was something which ordinary people absolutely could not chase up to. Her body had undergone a huge change. After the advancement, not only her profound grade had been upgraded, her overall strength and body quality had also been upgraded. She totally didn't feel any discomfort in her body and mind at all. Even his internal organs, which had been injured by the roars of hundreds of beasts, had been completely healed. Roar, roar, stupid humans. A bunch of despicable humans. Childine howled loudly as that child's features on its face had already twisted into a sinister bundle. Its thick arms kept waving and slapping around. Yiqing Luo dodged it nimbly, and with a light tap of her toes, she circled around its body and the silver threads shot out from her feather fan trapped it within. Suddenly, Childin's dancing hand stretched out as a furious roar rang out, and following that, a huge light ball was spat out from its mouth. That light ball was the size of Childin's head, which was equivalent to a huge rock which could fit 3 grown men. It headed directly towards Yiqing Luo's direction. "Qing Luo, be careful." The onlookers were so scared that their hearts skipped a beat. One by one, they reminded him, their hearts in their throats. Yiqing Luo was stunned, Yiqing Luo was stunned, Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with curses. Damn it! What kind of technique was this? It could even spit out light balls from its mouth. Was it a magical beast or a little monster? Yiqing Luo's figure swiftly swayed, and at the same time as she avoided the light ball, she kept on shouting, "Bring the men and evacuate quickly." The attack range of Childin's light ball is very far. She was able to avoid Childin's attack. But that didn't mean that the group of brothers behind her were able to avoid it. Under Child Yin's rage, the light ball which was released from its mouth was enough to sweep this entire forest. Long Yunjian and the others reacted swiftly as they immediately brought everyone to evacuate. Chapter 609. Hence, if a group of people were to arrive at the 5th level to complete a mission, they would probably see this strange scene. In front of them, a large group of mercenaries, who were in a sorry state, ran forward. Behind them were 20 over-injured advanced-leveled magical beasts as they bared their fangs, howling as they chased after them. But only after running for 100 meters away, Long Yunjian stopped in his tracks as he raised his hand to shout for them to stop. Following that, all of them turned around and started waving their weapons towards those 20 over-magical beasts, killing them. This position was out of the shooting range of the light ball, but they were still able to see Yiqing Luo clearly. That stretch of forest had already turned into ruins. The huge light ball exploded on the ground as sand and pebbles flew everywhere as dust curled upwards. The entire magical beast forest shook once again as it shook incessantly. Roar roar! Seeing its own light ball being avoided by Yiqing Luo, Child Yin howled even louder as it pounded its own chest fiercely as it spat out one light ball after another. That's right. One by one. One after another, the huge light ball was like bullets as it bombarded downwards with a pitter-patter. Yiqing Luo avoided the first one and the second light ball followed closely behind. When each light ball crashed onto the ground, it exploded a deep pit as it set off a huge airwave. This airwave also affected Yiqing Luo's performance. Just as Yiqing Luo avoided the third light ball, the airwave behind her directly caused Yiqing Luo's petite body to fall onto the ground. Immediately following that, the fourth light ball struck towards her. Qing Luo. Long Yunjian and the others stopped their hands which were slashing the magical beasts as they shouted out towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Dead! That little slut is dead. Lan Ling Nuo, who was carried in Ji Tsangtian's arms, was filled with joy as she watched Yiqing Luo being swallowed by the light ball as she excitedly hugged Ji Tsangtian's neck tightly. That spirited beautiful eyes were filled with joy as it was extremely beautiful. From the might of that light ball, it was totally able to flatten that stretch of forest. If Yiqing Luo was struck by that light ball, she probably wouldn't even have a full corpse left. The more she thought, the more excited Lan Ling Nuo's expression became. She smiled and even smiled as she hugged his neck. Ji Tsangtian's heart was thumping non-stop right now, so why would he care about what Lan Ling Nuo said? She nodded in agreement with Lan Ling Nuo's words. Yes, yes, yes. It's good that he died. It's good that he died. As long as younger sister Nuo is happy. But they didn't know that the surrounding youths were glaring at them as if they were enemies who had killed their fathers. Wretched servant girl, say that one more time. Tong Ziqing took quick steps forward and directly pulled Lan Ling Nuo out from Ji Tsangtian's arms. She raised her hand and slapped Lan Ling Nuo's face. Before Ji Tsangtian could even react in time, he heard a crisp slap sound. Under her meticulous care, Lan Ling Nuo's skin was extremely exquisite. Half of his face was flushed red from the slap, leaving a clear imprint of his 5 fingers. You crazy woman! What are you doing? Ji Tsangtian swiftly rushed up, trying to carry Lan Ling Nuo back. However, the girl in front of him looked small and delicate. But she just used one hand to casually change Lan Ling Nuo's side. Tong Ziqing wasn't appeased as she raised her hand and gave Lan Ling Nuo another slap on her left cheek as she scolded, If Qing Luo dies, I'll make your entire Blue Dragon mercenary group accompany her to the grave. These words made Ji Tsangtian's already gloomy face turn even colder. After hitting his woman, they even threatened his mercenary group. Did they really think that his Blue Dragon mercenary group was a bunch of vegetarians? These youngsters were just too arrogant. Chapter 610. Silence. A deathly silence. None of the group members who were standing behind Ji Tsang-tian made a move. Ji Tsang-tian's brows creased tightly as he looked at Lan Ling Nuo's aggrieved look as the rage in his heart surged. Are you all deaf? This group leader says, tie up these people who don't know what's good for them. Save your sister-in-law. He shouted furiously as he turned around and stared at those group members behind him. But he discovered that the remaining 50 over group members, other than those 20 over people who followed Ji Tsang-tian to stay in the array barrier who were trembling while holding their weapons, not knowing what to do. The other group members all stared at Ji Tsang-tian with a furious expression. They simply couldn't understand why their brilliant group leader had turned into this state today. Was it because of Lan Ling Nuo, that wretched woman? Some group members couldn't help but burst out, Group leader, the person who doesn't know what's good for her is Princess Ling Nuo, it's you. If it wasn't for the world group, if it wasn't for Miss Yi, we would have already become that huge beast, becoming the magical beast's food. We're mercenaries. We're real mercenaries. We will absolutely not do things like biting the hand that feeds us. One after another, the group members started to voice out the unhappiness in their hearts. But they knew clearly in their hearts that in their group leader's heart, Lan Ling Nuo was a treasure which no one could taint. They didn't dare to blame everything on Lan Ling Nuo, but in their words, the spearhead was pointed towards Lan Ling Nuo. After being slapped twice, Lan Ling Nuo's cheeks were swollen and red. When had she ever suffered such humiliation? She knew that she wasn't a match for Tong Ziqing, so she didn't dare to retaliate forcefully, only covering her mouth and her cheeks as tears started to flow down. Her mouth would occasionally, affectionately, call out, Brother Tsang-tian, looking as pitiful as she could be. When he heard the accusation from his team members, he cried even louder. The surrounding magical beasts had all been killed by the world group's youngsters. Now that they heard Lan Ling Nuo's sharp cries, they felt that it was ear-piercing and wanted to slap this lady till she fainted. Their hearts were filled with concern for Yiqing Luo's safety, and Lan Ling Nuo looked like she was at a funeral, so who would feel good about it? Hearing Lan Ling Nuo's cries, Ji Tsang-tian's heart ached as he totally didn't realize that it was his own fault, only feeling that his group members had all been brainwashed by the other party. The members who had always obeyed his orders dared to refute him today. They reprimanded him and even indirectly talked about their sister-in-law. If they hadn't been brainwashed by the other party, how could his members have become like this? Good. Good, you guys. You dare to resist my orders? You want to join their team, right? Fine. I'll fulfill your wish. Ji Tsang-tian directly tore down the group leader's badge from his chest. The other group members realized what Ji Tsang-tian wanted to do, and their expressions instantly changed. Ji Tsang-tian was trying to make them leave the Blue Dragon group. All of them were Blue Dragon group's elite team, and Ji Tsang-tian was willing to disregard their many years of brotherhood just for a woman. These members were completely disappointed. All of them clenched their fists so tightly that their veins popped out. The way they stared at Lan Ling Nuo was as though they were looking at a vixen who could bring calamity to the country and people. Quickly look. Qiao Jin stared at Yiqing Luo's direction as a glint flashed past his eyes as he cried out in joy. The world group's youngsters weren't in the mood to appreciate this farce. Chapter 611. Only to see two figures appearing indistinctly in that dazzling light. It was Dmo Xian. That tall figure, under the pull of the dazzling light, projected a long shadow. Yiqing Luo was embraced in his arms. Dmo Xian walked out from the light ball in an unhurried and steady manner. The air billows behind him blew up their sleeves and their black hair. Whereas Dmo Xian was still calm and composed as he walked slowly. The world group's youngsters suddenly felt their eyes turning moist. They stared at the two people in the light as their suspenseful hearts finally calmed down. Ni Ruopan and Kitty Lee were already crying out loud. Luckily nothing happened to their Qing Luo. Luckily the Overlord was by their side. Roar! Child Yin's eyes widened as it looked even more ferocious. Light balls started to spew out from its mouth once again. These two despicable humans actually dared to look down on it. And even dared to turn their backs against it. Child Yin howled, and that fat body which was like a mountain trembled, and following that, an endless stream of light balls were released. This time round, the attack range had obviously expanded. It wanted to annihilate the entire 5th level. Long Yunzhan reacted in time as he swiftly called for everyone to leave at the fastest speed possible. Ah Xian! Yiqing Luo hooked onto Dmo Xian's neck as the both of them exchanged glances, and immediately, the corners of their lips twitched meaningfully. Following that, Yiqing Luo's peripheral vision shot a glance at Child Yin as she leapt up from Dmo Xian's arms. Dmo Xian followed closely behind her. Two figures floated in mid-air as they faced that light ball which kept on exploding. The white light flickered as though it was a dream. Under this white light, the duo's peerless, devastatingly beautiful faces became even more spirited and handsome. Yiqing Luo's black robe was dancing in the strong wind, like a budding rose, a rose in the dark night. Yiqing Luo's feather fan spun a few rounds on her fingertips as a ray of red light was released from the feather fan, turning into a biting cold wind blade as it met the light ball head-on and struck back. The light ball surged, and this wind blade was extremely powerful. The two forces were stuck in mid-air and collided with each other. Gazing at Yiqing Luo's increasingly sweet and exquisite side profile under the white light, Dmo Xian's gaze turned gentle as his lips curled into a smile. His palm moved and a vigorous energy wrapped around the wind blade that Yiqing Luo created. Yiqing Luo's profound energy was already on par with those light balls. Now with the addition of Dmo Xian's profound energy, those light balls were immediately pushed back. Child Yin was extremely infuriated as he howled and hammered his chest before jumping up agilely to avoid the light ball that was coming back at him. With a leap, it pounced towards the two people floating in the air. Yiqing Luo sneered, her charming eyes were cold and indifferent, without a hint of panic. She exchanged glances with Dmo Xian and her body lightened as the feather fan in her hand opened up and waved out a fire dragon, speedily coiling towards Child Yin. In the fire dragon, there were still many strands of silver silk which headed straight towards Child Yin. Under the encirclement of the fire dragon, Child Yin was already infuriated and totally didn't notice the silver silk which was attacking from the side. After it dispersed the fire dragon which Yiqing Luo had released, those strands of silver silk swiftly pierced into its other eye. That was right. That fire dragon was simply a cover which Yiqing Luo used to confuse Child Yin. So what if it was a high-leveled Mirage Beast? Mirage Beast was after all a beast. No matter how intelligent it was still a beast. After knowing Child Yin's weakness, how would Yiqing Luo let go of its other eye? Chapter 6:12. Child Yin howled as copious amounts of blood started to gush out from its eyes. It covered its own eyes as it kept jumping around and howling. How could it endure the pain of its two eyes being pricked? It cried out miserably as its mountain-like body lost its balance after its eyes couldn't see as it fell heavily onto the ground. When Long Yunzhan saw that, he had already swiftly listed out a set of battle tactics in his mind as he waved his arm and called out to the World Group's youngsters to swarm forward. The current Child Yin had already lost half of its battle ability. It wasn't afraid that it was shooting out light balls. Child Yin's huge body was indeed a great help to it during battles. But after its eyes couldn't see, this assistance became a hindrance. Its mountain-like tall body totally couldn't maintain its balance and stand up. It only had a beast's senses and sense of smell. But the surroundings were filled with the stench of blood from the magical beasts. Its ears were filled with the sounds of numerous humans walking around. How could it differentiate? At this moment, Childine could only wait to be captured. Death was just a matter of time. In just a joss stick's time, Childine breathed its last breath amidst the pain. The World Group's youngsters looked at their own hands in disbelief and took another look at Childine, who was lying on the ground, still in disbelief. An advanced leveled mirage beast which had walked out from the 7th level. They had killed a 7th level advanced leveled mirage beast. Those who were immersed in joy didn't notice that not too far away, a strange flying insect was flapping its wings as it slowly got closer to that black-cloaked man's corpse. That flying insect stayed on the black-cloaked man's face for a moment. Following that, it extended its 2 antennae as it slowly probed into the black-cloaked man's eyeball. Using a little strength, it hugged that eyeball in its antennae as it flapped its wings and silently disappeared. The World Group's youngsters sat on the ground as though a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders. Everyone were so exhausted that no one could be bothered if what they were sitting on was flat ground or a magical beast's corpse or a pool of blood. They only wanted to sit down and have a good rest. Yiqing Luo's gaze swept past everyone, and after ascertaining that no one was seriously injured, she heaved a sigh of relief. She was really worried that because of her insufficient concern, it would cause her own brothers to get hurt. Lulu, distribute the medicinal pills to the brothers to replenish their physical strength. Long Yunjian glanced at Baiming Lulu. Baiming Lulu nodded, took out a palm-sized jade bottle from her bosom, and began to distribute the medicinal pills one by one. This was the medicinal pill which Yiqing Luo had discussed with Baiming Lulu last night to prepare. These elixirs were low-grade elixirs that could only replenish one's strength. Generally speaking, Yiqing Luo didn't advocate the use of this medicinal pill. After all, an expert could not completely rely on elixirs. There would always be a time when one would run out of medicinal pills, and there would always be a time when one would forget to bring medicinal pills. It was extremely important for an expert to know how to adjust his body's constitution and quickly replenish his stamina so that he could focus on the next battle. Yiqing Luo asked Baiming Lulu to bring it along as a backup. This was an accident. He had not expected that a 7th-level Childine would appear in the 5th level. The youths must have exhausted all their energy. Thinking of that slender figure which she saw among the group of beasts, Yiqing Luo's heart had an uneasy premonition. For safety's sake, it was better to maintain his strength. There would always be accidents in everything. After she finished distributing the medicinal pills, Yiqing Luo took a look at the Blue Dragon Group's members who were sitting by the side with an ugly expression, and then looked at Jitsang Tian, who was coaxing the lady in his arms. Chapter 613. Baiming Lulu lowered her head and took a look at the medicine bottle in her hands as she unwillingly pursed her lips. Towards Lan Ling Nuo's earlier performance, she already bore a grudge against Lan Ling Nuo. Although the medicinal pill in her hands was merely a low-grade medicinal pill, but even if it was just a stalk of grass, Baiming Lulu wasn't willing to give it to the Blue Dragon mercenary group. Lulu. Yiqing Luo shook her head at Baiming Lulu. Baiming Lulu pouted her lips as she felt displeased, but she understood that Yiqing Luo's decision naturally had her own reasons. She held on to the medicinal bottle as she walked over unwillingly. Lan Ling Nuo was nestled in Jitsang Tian's arms, enjoying Jitsang Tian's gentle care, and on seeing Baiming Lulu holding the medicine bottle over, her expression instantly turned unhappy. Are you trying to poison us? I'm telling you, our Blue Dragon mercenary group will absolutely not take your things. The group members who originally stood up and were preparing to receive the medicinal pills instantly froze in midair. The polite smiles on their faces also froze. After all, previously Jitsang Tian wanted to kick them out of the Blue Dragon group because of Lan Ling Nuo. Now that Lan Ling Nuo had spoken out, the group members didn't know whether to receive or not to receive the medicinal pills, making it rather awkward. The youngsters in the world group who had swallowed the energy-replenishing medicinal pills all stood up from the ground as they gripped the weapons in their hands tightly, wishing that they could charge up and chop that woman into pieces. Earlier Lan Ling Nuo's delighted look towards Yiqing Luo's death had completely infuriated the world group's youngsters. If it wasn't for Yiqing Luo who stopped them, they would absolutely teach Lan Ling Nuo a lesson. Take it. Baiming Lu suppressed the displeasure in her heart as her willowy brows creased slightly as she arrogantly stuffed the medicinal pills into the group members' hands. Lan Ling Nuo suddenly pushed Ji Tsangtian aside as she stood up. You guys are definitely up to no good. Trying to poison us. No way. Lan Ling Nuo not only hated Yiqing Luo, she also hated everyone in the world group. From what she saw, these ladies who got close to the Blue Dragon group were all trying to climb onto Ji Tsangtian, trying to snatch her man. Even if she didn't like Ji Tsangtian, but Ji Tsangtian could only like her. Lan Ling Nuo's gaze unknowingly fell onto that man who surrounded Yiqing Luo and asked about her well-being, his eyes filled with adoration. Her 5 fingers, which were hanging by the side of her body, curled up tightly one by one. All the men should be surrounding her. Ji Tsangtian paid full attention to Lan Ling Nuo so naturally he saw her little actions. Looking at the way she looked at Dmo Xian, his heart tightened. Men were like this. Once a competitor appeared, the previous admiration and love would turn into extreme admiration and extreme love. Immediately, Ji Tsangtian stood up and placed his palms on Lan Ling Nuo's shoulders. His broad chest pressed against Lan Ling Nuo's slender back. He looked at Dmo Xian complacently. The complacent smile on his face froze. Dmo Xian didn't even look at him. Ji Tsangtian's heart surged with a sense of humiliation as he raged at the group members behind him. Didn't you hear what your sister-in-law said? They're trying to poison us. The group members were so aggrieved that they really wanted to steel themselves and leave the Blue Dragon group. But when he thought of the few years he had spent in the Blue Dragon Regiment, growing step by step with the Blue Dragon Regiment, and his own brothers in the Blue Dragon Regiment, no matter what, before today, their regiment commander was indeed a good regiment commander. In the end, they still couldn't bear to part with their feelings towards the Blue Dragon group. The group members clenched their teeth as they said a sorry to Baiming Lu softly and returned back to the group. Chapter 6:14. Lulu, come back. Yiqing Luo didn't force her. Since these people weren't willing to accept their help, then they could only forget about it. Yan Xiaoyi's spirited eyes were filled with rage as she clenched her fists tightly. Qing Luo, there's simply too much. That slut only knows how to stir up trouble. Isn't she just jealous that sister is prettier than her? Li Mao's lips curled upwards in disdain. As a half-human half-beast, especially a cat beast, Li Mao was able to sense a human's emotions at the first instance. Tong Ziqing's cold face revealed disdain. They want to measure the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. Later when they meet with danger, no one is allowed to lend a helping hand. Tong Ziqing's voice wasn't loud, but it absolutely wasn't soft either. These words, which were filled with disdain, were clearly transmitted to Blue Dragon Group. Lan Ling Nuo gave a cold harumph. Who needs your help? As for you guys, don't cry to us for help. Blue Dragon Group's members all looked at Lan Ling Nuo as though they were looking at an idiot. Was there really nothing wrong with this princess's brain? Earlier in that dangerous situation, their 100 brothers were now left with 40 over people. If it wasn't for the world group's youngsters, none of them would be left. They had already walked on the edge of life and death, and she still hadn't realized the current situation. Human nature was like this. When you liked someone, no matter what the other party said or did, you would feel that what he said or did was right. Whereas when you really hated someone, no matter what he said or did, it would be a capital word, I know. Shun. Previously, because of Ji Tsangtian, they felt that Lan Ling Nuo was as beautiful as a goddess. But now, because of Ji Tsangtian, they felt that Lan Ling Nuo was a source of trouble. 50 over brothers' deaths were all caused by Lan Ling Nuo. Yiqing Luo now completely believed in Lan Ling Nuo's princess identity. Damn it. Her princess illness was beyond cure. A bunch of idiots, medicinal pills poured out from the same bottle, we can eat it but to them, it's poison, her. Qiao Jin spat out fiercely. Each of you speak less. Long Yunzhan, who had replenished his physical strength, slowly opened his eyes. Deep blue ripples appeared at the bottom of his eyes, forming circles of ripples. Qing Luo has already done what she should do. As for whether to accept it or not, that's their business. As soon as the regiment commander spoke, everyone's indignation instantly subsided. After sitting quietly for a moment, Yiqing Luo stood up and walked towards Child Yin's corpse. There were definitely magicite gems in the brains of high-level mirage beasts. Not only could his flesh and bones be used to forge superior-grade equipment, but he could also forge pills rich in spiritual energy. Also, the blood in Child Yin's body was also an excellent medicine catalyst. Yiqing Luo naturally wouldn't let Child Yin's corpse be wasted here. Just as they got nearer to Child Yin, they heard Ji Tsangtian's furious howl, "You want to keep the huge beast's corpse for yourself." As a group leader for over 10 years, Ji Tsangtian naturally understood how valuable a high-leveled mirage beast from the 7th level was. How could he possibly let Yiqing Luo monopolize it all? Especially the high-grade mirage beasts. There were magic crystals worth thousands of gold in their heads. Naturally, Ji Tsangtian had already gone through a meticulous calculation in his mind. The World Group's youngsters had just gone through a great battle with Child Yin and killed hundreds of mid- and advanced-leveled magical beasts, exhausting too much of their profound energy so their profound heart jade would definitely dry up. Even if the World Group had 60 over people, the current them absolutely could not be compared to the members on his side. Chapter 6:15. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched as she glanced sideways at Ji Tsangtian with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Blue Dragon Group leader's meaning is, "You also want to split Child Yin's corpse?" Ji Tsangtian straightened his back. "That's of course. The huge beast's death, our Blue Dragon Group has contributed quite a bit." Pausing for a moment, he turned back and swept a glance at the group members behind him as his confidence increased. "Moreover, our Blue Dragon Group has lost 50 over brothers while none of you have died. That's enough to show how much we have contributed." Blue Dragon Group's members all opened their eyes wide. The World Group's youngsters all had a cursing expression on their faces. Damn it. They knew Ji Tsangtian was shameless, but they didn't know that he was this shameless. He was simply shameless. He could even say such shameless words. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a chilly smile as her fingertip hooked slightly. A petite and adorable fox and a petite leopard jumped onto Yiqing Luo's arms and stood on her shoulders, one on the left and one on the right. On the backs of these two little war pets hung a space bag, and there were several pieces of magical beast cores in their mouths. Under everyone's gaze, they openly spat them into the space bag. This time round, the group of members who were rather speechless towards their own group leader started staring at that bag of magical beast cores. That's right. There were also magical beast cores. Earlier there were a total of 200 over intermediate and advanced leveled magical beasts, so there might even be magic crystal stones. They were only thinking of preserving their lives and had totally forgotten about this matter. They had not expected. Yiqing Luo actually asked her two war pets to go pick up those magical beast cores. The one with the biggest reaction was Lan Ling Nuo. "Slut. You actually dare to steal the magical beast cores behind our backs. Quickly pass the magical beast cores to us. Otherwise, don't blame us Blue Dragon Group for not standing on ceremony." The other members were also a little displeased in their hearts. Although towards Yiqing Luo and the others, they were filled with admiration. But earlier, those magical beasts, they had indeed put in some effort. Moreover, these magical beast cores might possibly contain magic crystal stones, which was a huge sum of money. People's hearts were easily swayed by money. This was human nature. One of the group members who had joined in the battle earlier turned towards Yiqing Luo's direction and said, "Miss Yi, although the group leader's words are a little harsh, but it's not without reason. Everyone here are people who had joined in the battle, these magic cores. Magic crystals should be split amongst us." Yiqing Luo retrieved the space bag from Shiju's back and immediately grabbed a handful of it. The magic core in her palm shone brightly. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly, and her eyes were tainted with some mockery. "Originally, I had indeed intended to divide these demon cores equally, but, seeing the leader of your esteemed group eating in such an unsightly manner made me lose my appetite." Soon after, with a wave of her hand, the monster core in her hand was thrown towards the small stream beside her. Pieces of monster cores fell into the edge of the stream. He could vaguely see that there were 2 mana crystals mixed in. Mana stones. That was a mana stone. Wasn't it a little too casual to throw it away just like that? "Even if I throw it away, I don't want to give it to you." Yiqing Luo looked at Ji Tsangtian, who was staring at the stream with a steely green expression as she gave a charming smile. "I hate being forced the most." "You." Lan Ling Nuo stood up in a flustered and exasperated manner as she walked over and pushed Yiqing Luo fiercely. "You slut. You snatched our bear beast's corpse and now you still want to forcefully occupy the huge beast's corpse. You even want to snatch away the magical beast core which our blue dragon group had risked our lives to exchange for. Don't you have any face?" Yo! This little princess actually knew what face was. Chapter 6:16. His 5 fingers clenched tightly, and scarlet traces appeared on his plain white wrist. Yiqing Luo leaned close to Lan Ling Nuo's face, as a pair of bewitching eyes looked at her coldly, with that arrogance. Lan Ling Nuo felt her legs go weak, and a chill rose from the bottom of her feet. He felt as if he was in an ice house, so cold that it was bone-chilling. He wanted to struggle, but he didn't have the strength to do so. "Should I say that you are daring or foolish?" Yiqing Luo's enchanting voice rang beside her ear like an evil spirit demanding for her life. Lan Ling Nuo's eyes widened. Her exquisite and beautiful face was now twisted in a terrifying manner due to fear. "You don't have the ability and yet you dare to come knocking towards me." Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she sneered. "Aren't you very confident in your own beauty? Wasn't it 90% sure that she would win against Ji Tsangtian? How about I do a test for you?" How would Yiqing Luo not be able to tell that this Lan Ling Nuo totally had no feelings for Ji Tsangtian? She was merely making use of Ji Tsangtian's admiration towards her to coax Ji Tsangtian to be obedient to her. In other words, she was simply enjoying the pleasure of a man being infatuated with her. Lan Ling Nuo's face paled as she realized something. Indeed, he heard Yiqing Luo laughing coldly. "I'll kill you and let's see if Ji Tsangtian will help you take revenge and kill me." "You!" Lan Ling Nuo was so scared that her face turned pale as she stared at Yiqing Luo in terror. "You dare to kill me? I am the princess of the East Continent. My status is noble, you. Lan Ling Nuo was in the middle of loudly announcing her identity with a sharp voice when her body suddenly became light. Her entire person fell to the ground in a sorry state. The blood of the demonic beasts covered the ground and stained her body. The angle of Yiqing Luo's casual throw was extremely good. Lan Ling Nuo's face first landed on the ground, and she immediately rolled in a circle. She collided with the corpse of a magical beast at the side, and coincidentally buried herself in the wound of the magical beast's corpse. When Lan Ling Nuo's stomach churned from the smell of blood, she lifted her head. Her head was almost completely covered in blood. Just the thought of a bloody head sent chills down his spine. Ah! Ah! Lan Ling Nuo's vision was filled with the color of blood. Her entire head was covered in mucus and blood, which flowed down her face continuously. She hugged her own face, screaming as she tried to run towards Ji Tsang-tian's direction. Although the members of the Blue Dragon group had been through many battlefields and had seen many dead people, they were still shocked when they saw a bloody man charging at them. One by one, they dispersed. No one dared to get close to her. "Aren't you trying to distort the truth? Aren't you trying to forcefully eat something that doesn't belong to you? Don't you like monster cores? As their sister-in-law, if I don't do something for them, how can I convince the public?" Yiqing Luo's chilly voice had a hint of ridicule in it. Following that, the feather fan in Yiqing Luo's hand shook slightly and a ray of red light suddenly lifted Lan Ling Nuo's body up. Plop! Lan Ling Nuo's entire body plunged into the stream. The stream was instantly dyed red. As a princess, Lan Ling Nuo naturally knew how to swim. But right now, Lan Ling Nuo's beautiful face had been ruined by Yiqing Luo, and she was suddenly thrown into the middle of the stream, so how would she be able to react in time? She flopped around for a while and sunk into the water. Yiqing Luo's sweet voice was heard from the shore, "It's just a slight effort, no need to thank me." Thank. It was already not bad that she didn't kill her. Ji Tsang-tian was so angry that his entire face turned black as charcoal, as he trembled all over. This woman was simply too arrogant. Chapter 617. What are you all still in a daze for? Go down and save your sister-in-law. Ji Tsang-tian swallowed his anger as he dashed to the side of the stream and jumped down directly. Those 20 over members who had been following Ji Tsang-tian also jumped down when they saw that. This kind of thing which could show their face in front of the group leader and wasn't dangerous at all, they were naturally more than willing to snatch it. The remaining 30 over members who had fought together with the world group previously, as they didn't like Lan Ling Nuo, they hesitated for a moment. Eventually they walked to the side of the stream and jumped down. The group of them were in the stream which wasn't considered spacious, but they still weren't able to catch Lan Ling Nuo. Lan Ling Nuo would surge down from time to time and pop her head out from time to time, making a grumbling sound before sinking back down. Ji Tsang-tian's heart ached for her. After a long time, even if it was a scorching hot day, soaking in the stream for a long time in such a cold place would make one feel cold. There were already quite a number of members who used the pretense of saving Lan Ling Nuo, but in actual fact, they were secretly searching for the magic cores and magic crystals which Yiqing Luo had thrown into the stream. Standing in the dark, the crowd who were admiring this scene in satisfaction had a carefree smile on their lips. Is it fun? Dmo Xian glanced sideways at the smiling young lady beside him as his gentle peach blossom eyes overflowed with a helpless smile. Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly as she rested her head on his shoulder. It's fun. How could it not be fun? Yiqing Luo moved her fingers and under the sunlight's illumination, an extremely fine silver thread could be seen faintly, from the feather fan in her hands, directly climbing to the side of the stream, onto that Lan Ling Nuo who was struggling non-stop. That's right. 50 over people in a small stream, unable to save Lan Ling Nuo. Lan Ling Nuo would occasionally float up to the surface and occasionally pop her head out to catch her breath, which was all Yiqing Luo's doing. This patient with princess syndrome not only had a problem with her brain, there was also a problem with her worldview. Time and time again, she had provoked her bottom line, so don't blame her for treating her as a performance toy for the world group's youngsters to entertain themselves after the battle. Seeing that Lan Ling Nuo was tormented till she was half dead, Yiqing Luo then shook her fingers as she silently retracted the silver thread. Following that, she put on an innocent and comfortable look as she leaned on Dmo Xian's shoulder, smiling like a flower. Without the control of the silver threads, Lan Ling Nuo was quickly rescued ashore. After soaking in the water for the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, the blood on her head had been washed away, but she had already fallen into a coma. She was even shivering non-stop. It was obvious that she had been soaked in the water. The exquisite makeup on her face was washed away. Although her facial features were exquisite, they weren't as stunning as before. Ji Tsang Tian hugged Lan Ling Nuo tightly, but he was also drenched, so how could he warm Lan Ling Nuo? They also didn't have the habit of bringing spare clothes out for missions. Ji Tsang Tian touched Lan Ling Nuo's forehead and it burned his palm. It was obvious that he had caught a cold. He took out his interspatial pocket and rummaged through it for pills. However, the medicinal pills he brought out were all for treating injuries. There were no medicinal pills for treating colds. Lan Ling Nuo shivered unconsciously and kept shouting that she was cold. Her soft and delicate body continuously rubbed against his chest. If this dragged on, Lan Ling Nuo might not be able to hold on any longer. At least, he had to let Lan Ling Nuo change into a set of clean clothes. Ji Tsang Tian bit his lips tightly as he hesitated in his heart for some time. In the end, he still couldn't bear to see his beloved woman suffer as he looked towards Yiqing Luo and the others. Take off your clothes. She had to admit that this Ji Tsang Tian's prince syndrome was rather serious. Things had already come to this stage and he still used a commanding tone to speak to her. Chapter 6:18. Ji Tsang Tian clenched his fists tightly. You're the one who threw Sister Nuo into the stream. Shouldn't we take responsibility? Yiqing Luo seemed as though she had heard the funniest joke in the world as she clutched her tummy and burst out laughing. Your sister Nuo cares so much about her appearance. I'm just trying to make her face a little cleaner. Pausing for a moment, Yiqing Luo placed her feather fan on her lips as her vision swept past those group members who were like drowning dogs. What's more, as your woman and their sister-in-law, I should at least contribute to your mercenary group. Ji Tsang Tian said angrily, whether or not Sister Nuo wants to contribute to the Blue Dragon group is our group's matter, what has it got to do with you? Yiqing Luo nodded in realization, oh yes, it has nothing to do with us. After saying that, she stretched her limbs and turned to look at her brothers. The farce is over. Let's go, let's continue with our quest. The youngsters of the World Group stood up in an orderly manner. Ji Tsang Tian clenched his teeth as he couldn't wait to rush up and dismember Yiqing Luo into 1,000 pieces. But looking at the woman in his arms, who was losing consciousness, he gritted his teeth and suppressed his anger. He then softened his tone, Miss Yi, it was my fault for using the wrong words. Could you please be magnanimous and let me borrow some clothes for Sister Nuo? Standing at the side, the members who were wringing their drenched clothes had an indescribable feeling in their hearts. In their eyes, the high and mighty regiment commander had lost his brilliance and prestige for the sake of a woman. Now, he had even thrown away his own pride. They were conflicted. On the one hand, he was bitterly disappointed in his regiment commander, but on the other hand, he remembered the trials and tribulations they had gone through together. On one hand, he wanted to leave the Blue Dragon group, but on the other hand, he couldn't give up his feelings for the group. As a result, compared to their regiment commander's displeasure, they hated Lan Ling Nuo even more. They secretly swore that if Lan Ling Nuo dared to be disloyal to their group leader, even if they had to bear the consequences of being kicked out of Blue Dragon mercenary group, they would kill Lan Ling Nuo. Miss Yi, we don't want those demon cores anymore. If you have extra clothes, just lend us one. One by one, the group members started to plead. Ji Tsang Tian stared fiercely at the group member who said that as he opened his mouth to stop him. But on seeing Yiqing Luo's disdainful gaze, he instantly shut his mouth. Now, he was the one who needed her help. He could give up on the magic cores. He could give up on the mana crystals. But Lan Ling Nuo must not be allowed to die. Originally he thought that Yiqing Luo would be extremely difficult to deal with, even taking the opportunity to humiliate him, so Ji Tsang Tian was already mentally prepared. However, Yiqing Luo only revealed a difficult expression, propped her chin and pondered for a moment. Actually, it's just a piece of clothing. It's not impossible. Ji Tian suddenly raised his head. Not only will I give you a set of clothes, I can let all of you change into dry clothes. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes hooked up into a crafty arc. Clearly, he was plotting something. Even though he knew it was a scheme, Ji Tian could only bear with it. What conditions do you have? Right now, it should be 5 in the afternoon. That was around 3 to 5 in the afternoon. Because of your disturbance, a large portion of our mission has not been completed. Yiqing Luo intentionally paused, as her finger pointed to the group members standing by the side. Your beloved has turned into such a state, so I'm sure you don't have the mood to continue with the mission. I need you to lend me some men, to help our group complete the mission. Ji Tian's brows creased tightly as his entire face creased into a ball. Borrow people. Was this a forceful headhunting? Chapter 6:19. This explanation might as well not explain at all. What was meant by only taking young and handsome young men and young ladies? What was meant by they were too old? Wasn't this blatantly ridiculing their age? The faces of the members of the Blue Dragon group twitched uncontrollably. Did she need to be so damaging? The World Group's youngsters all laughed out loud. After our mission is completed, we will naturally let them go back. Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders with an indifferent look. This condition, whether to change or not, will depend on you guys. Ji Tian turned silent. Those group members also turned silent. Yiqing Luo had been paying attention to them all the time. From the looks of it, they were using the mercenary group badge to carry on their internal communication. Yiqing Luo wasn't in a hurry. Based on Ji Tian's abnormal concern towards Lan Ling Nuo, even if she asked him to kill his brothers by his side, in exchange for a chance for Lan Ling Nuo to survive, he would probably agree to it. So Ji Tian would definitely agree to this condition. As expected, not long later, Ji Tian raised his head as he squeezed out each and every word from the slits of his teeth. All right. I agree to it. Yiqing Luo didn't hesitate as she directly walked towards the group of members and casually pointed. Very quickly, she pointed out those 30 over people who had taken part in the magical beast battle. I only want these people. As for the rest, just treat them as escorting you back to your encampment. Ji Tian was patient, and on seeing that she had finally finished choosing, he hurriedly opened his mouth. Clothes. Yiqing Luo turned her head towards the World Group's youngsters. Young youngsters, take off your clothes. When the World Group's youngsters heard that, they were all stunned. They thought that Yiqing Luo's realm ring had a lot of clothes. They had not expected that she actually wanted them to take off their clothes. This was the uniform which they had been wearing for less than 3 days. Even if it was already soaked in blood, even if it was torn, it still represented their group's uniform. These youngsters were unwilling, and Ji Tian frowned. You want us to wear your clothes? Up to you. Yiqing Luo replied impolitely. You. Ji Tian's muscles tensed up as his anger had already rushed to the top of his head. Lan Ling Nuo unconsciously moaned in pain as her little face flushed an abnormal shade of red, and her body, which had crashed into his embrace, was boiling hot. Ji Tian panted heavily as he suppressed his anger. Yes. Go get changed, Long Yunjian said calmly. The teenagers hesitated for a moment, and then one by one, they got into the bushes at the side and began to change their clothes. Yan Xiaoyi had ordered 2 sets of uniforms for everyone, and everyone was wearing them. After a while, sets of clothes piled up on the ground. The youths changed into clean uniforms and walked out. This scene made Ji Tian's eyes twitch. There were clean clothes, but he had to give them dirty clothes. But this time round, Ji Tian had learned his lesson and didn't mention it again. Sloppy clothes were better than these soaked clothes. A group member picked a slightly cleaner set of clothes from the pile and passed it to Ji Tian. Ji Tian carried Lan Ling Nuo and was just about to help Lan Ling Nuo change her clothes when he suddenly saw a piece of clothing covering his head. Just as he was about to tear off the thing covering his head, he heard a lady's clear and sweet voice, "These are clothes which I have not worn before. You wouldn't wish for your sister Nuo to wear other men's clothes, right?" That one sentence successfully made Ji Tian's twisted fingers loosen up. Indeed, he wasn't willing for Lan Ling Nuo to wear other men's clothes. Looking at Ji Tian's back view as he went into the forest to help Lan Ling Nuo change her clothes, Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a crafty cold arc. Chapter 620. The youngsters of the World Group had already changed into a new set of uniforms as they walked out of the forest cleanly. The members of the Blue Dragon Group, on the other hand, took their dirty, blood-stained clothes and went to the jungle to change their wet clothes. Even though they were men, after soaking in the water for such a long time and being eroded by the yin qi in the magical beast forest, they still couldn't bear the cold. Even if it was dirty and messy, she could only grit her teeth and wear it. A portion of them entered the bushes to change while a portion of the group members who had changed surrounded Ji Tian's surroundings, forming a meat wall, wrapping him up tightly without leaving any gaps. As though he was worried that the people on Yiqing Luo's side would peek at his sister Nuo changing. Yiqing Luo's mouth twitched a few times as she snorted softly. The youngsters in her family were all as pure as a piece of white paper, okay? The youngsters in her family weren't blind, all right. Only Ji Tian had the appetite to swallow a woman like Lan Ling Nuo. He wondered what expression Lan Ling Nuo would have after she woke up and found out that her entire body had been seen and touched by Ji Tian. It would definitely be very exciting. The World Group's youngsters were filled with displeasure as they stared at Blue Dragon Group's side, simply not understanding why Yiqing Luo wanted to make a deal with them. Even if they didn't need the help of the Blue Dragon Group, they would still be able to complete the mission after replenishing their energy. But the youngsters understood that Yiqing Luo had her own reasons for doing so. Not too long later, Ji Tian changed into a set of dry clothes and carried Lan Ling Nuo, who had similarly changed out as he walked out. The water on Lan Ling Nuo's head and face had already been wiped dry. Her face was pale, and she was still unconscious. Standing in front of the group members, Ji Tian only stared coldly at Yiqing Luo for a while before carrying Lan Ling Nuo, not even turning his head back as he walked towards the entrance of the 4th level. Lan Ling Nuo's body was already boiling hot like it was about to catch fire. He had to bring Lan Ling Nuo to find a doctor as soon as possible. He knew clearly that if he were to start a dispute with Yiqing Luo now, he would absolutely not gain any advantage. That woman was as cunning as a fox. It was as if he knew his feelings for Lan Ling Nuo and was unscrupulous. Revenge is a dish best served cold. As long as the World Mercenary Group was still mingling in the mercenary world, he had plenty of methods to take revenge. In the eyes of the members of the Blue Dragon Group, this kind of behavior was not what they thought. Those 20 over people who weren't chosen chased after Ji Tian's footsteps with wild joy. They had long wanted to leave this damned place. The air was filled with the smell of blood and gloomy qi. If it wasn't for the mission, they really didn't want to take a step here. Whereas for those 30 over people who were chosen by Yiqing Luo, their expressions were extremely ugly as they stared at Ji Tian's departing figure. Was he going to abandon them just like that? He didn't even say a word of comfort. A feeling of abandonment rose in the hearts of these members. Recalling the scene where Ji Tian wanted them to leave the Blue Dragon Group, disappointment immediately filled his heart. They suddenly did not know why they had been so persistent all this time. While everyone was staring at those members of the Blue Dragon Group, Yiqing Luo's fingertip hooked onto Shiju's shoulder as she leaned close to its ear and whispered a few words. Shiju blinked its eyes and howled softly. In a blink of an eye, Shiju's figure disappeared from Yi Qingluo's shoulder. Qingluo, that little slut deserves it even if she froze to death. Why do you still need to give her clean clothes? Yan Xiaoyi furrowed her brows in indignation. Chapter 621. Scapegoat. The youths were puzzled. Yi Qingluo's smile didn't diminish as her feet moved and she had already turned into an afterimage, speedily nearing the entrance of the 4th level. Among the dense trees, everyone's expressions tightened as they stared at Yi Qingluo's actions. Following that, he saw Yi Qingluo's lightning-fast figure and in a few breaths, she had already pinched a black-robed man as she walked out. That black-robed man's face flushed red from being pinched, as he kept struggling to pry Yi Qingluo's fingers away. He was originally hiding in the dark, paying attention to Yi Qingluo and the others' actions. His concealment was absolutely impeccable. He had not expected that in the blink of an eye, it had fallen into Yi Qingluo's hands. It was so fast that he still hadn't realized what had happened. Assassin! Yan Xiaoyi's beautiful eyes suddenly widened as she looked at the black-robed man in Yi Qingluo's hands and speedily rushed forward. Someone wants to kill us. Yi Qingluo nodded her head as her squinted eyes revealed an enchanting brilliance. Earlier when she was dealing with Childine, she had already discovered an unfamiliar aura in the dark. However, this aura wasn't strong, and it had been lingering outside the battlefield. This kind of aura. To Yi Qingluo, who was once a killer, she was absolutely not unfamiliar with it. There were assassins lying in ambush nearby. After Yi Qingluo sensed carefully, she confirmed that there was only one killer. It was probably an assassin who was secretly monitoring their movements. Yi Qingluo wasn't so silly to think that this killer dared to assassinate them alone. If the killer dared to come here alone to investigate the situation, he must have an accomplice. Yi Qingluo casually threw the killer towards Qiao Jin and immediately drew out a handkerchief as she slowly wiped her hands. Qiao Jin hurriedly trapped the killer. He stared at the killer for a long time before his face suddenly lit up. Your scapegoat is referring to this. Seeing Yi Qingluo nodding her head, the World Group's youngsters started to laugh unkindly. That's what they said, anyone who offended their Madame Qingluo, no matter who it was, they could forget about having it easy. Let's observe a moment of silence for those mercenaries. The youths all closed their eyes and observed a moment of silence. In fact, he couldn't hide the smile on his face. He had to admit that Yi Qingluo was indeed treacherous. The assassins did not know who their target was. But no matter who the target was, Ji Tsangtian and the others had to take the blame. This was not a light scapegoat. If he was not careful, he might be smashed to death by this walk. If the killer's target was the World Group, when Ji Tsangtian and the others left the Magic Beast Forest, they would definitely be surrounded by those killers. If the killer's target was the World Group or Yi Qingluo, Ji Tsangtian and the others had left the Magic Beast Forest and they were wearing the World Group's uniform. Those killers wouldn't care if Ji Tsangtian and the others were from the World Group, as they would definitely make a move on them who were wearing the World Group's uniform. If it wasn't for the fact that she had already planned it out in her heart, how would she possibly be so kind as to make a deal with Ji Tsangtian? Ji Tsangtian's entire heart was on Lan Ling Nuo, and if it was as expected, after meeting the killers, he would definitely abandon those group members and leave on his own. As for the remaining members, they looked like cowards who were afraid of death. After being abandoned by Ji Tsangtian, their hearts were in a mess, so not many of them would be able to survive. As for the reason why they chose these members of the Blue Dragon Corps, she had once said that she admired capable people. These cultivators all had a pure and innocent heart, but their ability had been buried by Ji Tsangtian, that person who had high expectations but low ability. And, most importantly, Chapter 622. When Blue Dragon Group's 30 over members heard that, their expressions instantly changed as they swiftly turned around, wanting to save Ji Tsang Tian and his group of brothers. Stand right there. A chilly command was heard, making one shudder. Those 30 over members subconsciously stopped in their tracks as their bodies stiffened, not daring to move. Yiqing Luo walked slowly towards them as her devastatingly beautiful face was masked with a faint layer of frost. Step by step, she walked extremely slowly. Every single step she took made an extremely soft sound. In those members' ears, it was as though that step had stepped on the bottom of their hearts. Heavy, powerless, unable to resist. Yiqing Luo's eyes were like ice as she calmly glanced at them. Your group leader has already handed over your authority in the Magic Beast Forest to me. We're going to save. Before they could finish their words, they were interrupted by Yiqing Luo's ridiculing laughter. Save? It's too late. You're all very clear on how much your group leader values that princess. She won't be able to hold on for much longer and your group leader must have hastened his pace. By now, he should have already met with those killers. The 30 over members' expressions turned uglier by the minute. Their original admiration towards Yiqing Luo had now turned into thick anger. As compared to their admiration towards Yiqing Luo, they were more inclined towards the Blue Dragon mercenary group which they had gotten along with for the past few years. There were simply too many brothers here who had once gone through life and death together. Yiqing Luo actually schemed for the killers to assassinate the Blue Dragon group. She wanted to borrow the killers' hands to kill Ji Tsang Tian. They were going to save Ji Tsang Tian. No matter how inconsiderate today's group leader was, no matter how much he made their hearts turn cold because of Lan Ling Nuo. Group leader was after all the group leader. This was a deeply ingrained fact. As long as you're still Blue Dragon mercenary group's mercenaries, you have to listen to my commands obediently. Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly as she raised her index finger and gave an enchanting smile. Your group leader personally promised me. More than 30 members, who had lifted their feet, abruptly retracted their feet. Yes. This was the deal that Ji Tsang Tian and Yiqing Luo had made. In the Magic Beast Forest, they must help the World Group to complete their mission, unconditionally coordinating with Yiqing Luo's actions. But if they knew that Ji Tsang Tian and the others were being chased by the killers and they still stood by the side, how were they going to face Blue Dragon Group? One side was love, the other side was righteousness. They really didn't know how to choose. Even if you rush over now, it's of no use. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with ridicule as she stared at the struggling expressions of these group members. His voice suddenly paused as he gave an innocent smile. Of course, if you insist on going against the deal and leave the World Group, I won't force you. Since they had already spoken to this extent, would they dare to leave so easily? Blue Dragon Mercenary Group was preparing to upgrade to a Silver Plate Mercenary Group and they must not have any negative comments. They had totally witnessed Yiqing Luo's mouth. If they really left now to save Ji Tsang Tian and the others, Yiqing Luo could totally spread the news of Blue Dragon Group violating the deal. At that time, when the Mercenary Union was reviewing the Mercenary Group's promotion, if they discovered this dark secret, it was very likely that the Mercenary Group's promotion would fail. Thinking of this, they gritted their teeth and suppressed the displeasure in their hearts. They stood where they were and did not mention anything about leaving. Chapter 623. The black-robed man struggled with all his might as his eyes opened wide, revealing a ferocious gaze as he bared his teeth in an attempt to intimidate Xiao Jin. The black-robed man had heard Yiqing Luo and the rest's conversation clearly, and had heard everything clearly. These children, who looked to be no more than 15 or 16 years old, actually had such deep scheming minds. Not only did they discover him who was hiding in the dark, they were even able to swiftly counterattack. Killing with a borrowed knife. This wasn't merely killing with a borrowed knife. It would also cause the Blue Dragon mercenary group to form a feud with their killer alliance. Even if they had recognized the wrong person and killed the wrong person. But in Ji Tsang Tian's eyes, he would definitely ascertain that these killers were here for him, Ji Tsang Tian. The black-robed man struggled to send out a signal flare, trying to warn his partner. But Xiao Jin's hands which were clasping the killer's arms were extremely tight. Who sent you here? Yiqing Luo walked towards the black-robed man as her vision swept past him. Who's your target? Pui. The black-robed man spat out fiercely. Damn. You still dare to be so arrogant in my hands. Xiao Jin instantly exploded as he threw him onto the ground and immediately stomped on the black-robed man's chest. This stomp was filled with strength. The black-robed man coughed fiercely as blood spurted out from his mouth. He kept on coughing violently as his body kept on shaking. A wooden token slid out from his messy open shirt. The black-robed man's eyes widened in terror as he stretched out his hand in an attempt to snatch that wooden token back. His hand had just stretched out when it was stepped on by a petite foot. A fair little hand picked up that wooden token. The totem carved on the wooden token was extremely exquisite. From that outline, it looked similar to a bat. In the middle of the wooden token, there were 3 words carved in flamboyant calligraphy: Killer Alliance. Killer Alliance. Yen Xiaoyi screamed out in astonishment. Killer Alliance, that was one of the top assassins in Nirvana Realm. One must know that the weakest assassin in Killer Alliance was at Mystic Profound 5th grade realm and their movements were remarkable. Furthermore, even if you had money, you might not be able to hire the assassins from Killer Alliance. If you wanted to hire the assassins from Killer Alliance, you had to go through connections. Ordinary people naturally heard of Killer Alliance's reputation. Especially those 30 over Blue Dragon group members, their faces were steely green as they clenched their fists tightly. An assassin from the Assassin's Alliance, those brothers, can they fight against these killers? A few of the members could no longer hold back their worry for their brothers and ran towards the 4th level. With one person taking the lead, the other members couldn't hold it in any longer. The reputation of a mercenary group was important. But if they were to watch their brothers die, they really couldn't do it. At most, after saving those brothers, they would leave Blue Dragon mercenary group. With this thought in mind, the members left one by one. You people. Yen Xiaoyi chased up a few steps and pointed at those group members as she scolded, ungrateful. Leaving just like that, you really are a dog that can't be tamed. In Yen Xiaoyi and the others' hearts, Yiqing Luo really took good care of these 30 over group members. Xiaoyi. Yiqing Luo called out to Yen Xiaoyi as she clenched the wooden token in her hand tightly. Raising her eyes, she gave an extremely calm smile. If they don't go and save their brothers, I would instead look down on them. The Blue Dragon group was their home. The members of the Blue Dragon Corps were their family and their brothers. If they really did not care about their brother's life and death to that extent, then they would really be known as a dog that can't be tamed. Looking at those people's departing figures, Yiqing Luo was even more certain of these people's character. These people should have a better place to develop. Chapter 624. You're thinking of. Long Yunzhan's handsome brows creased slightly, as though he was aware of Yiqing Luo's thoughts. Yiqing Luo tossed the wooden token into the profound phoenix ring and nodded decisively, yes. Long Yunzhan frowned even more. The surrounding youths did not understand the riddle between them and asked curiously. Yiqing Luo only gave a mysterious smile. Killer's Alliance. Yiqing Luo shot her gaze towards the black-robed man. The person who hired your Killer's Alliance is Yuchi family's patriarch, right? The black-clothed man no longer had the strength to struggle. He lay limply on the ground, coughing out a mouthful of blood from time to time. He looked half dead. The black-robed man didn't reply, and Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to interrogate further. He continued, "Your target is me." The black-clothed man was still half dead. Yiqing Luo's eyes went into a blank as a bloodthirsty smile appeared, looking at Xiao Jin. "Kill him." Killed. Xiao Jin was startled. He hadn't even gotten any information from the black-clothed man, and he was killed just like that. Kill. Yiqing Luo said without hesitation. She could already confirm that the Yuqi family had hired assassins from the Assassins Association. She should have guessed that the Yuqi family head had lost face in front of everyone, and it might even endanger the Yuqi family's position. How could the Yuqi family head let her off so easily? Patriarch Yuqi wished for nothing more than for her to die. These killers were professionally trained killers. They were a group of desperados who did not care about their own lives at all. Moreover, the habit of not being able to complete a mission no matter how big the world was had long been ingrained in his bones. Towards those who were bent on killing her, Yiqing Luo would absolutely not be lenient. The Yuqi family. There was no rush. Prey had to be slowly teased. Only then would it be interesting. After battling with Child Ian and hundreds of intermediate and high-leveled magical beasts, these youths obviously felt that their abilities had become much stronger. When it came to the rest of the mission, it was practically effortless for him to obtain the magical beast's corpse. Even the eagle beast, which was the most difficult to deal with, was completed with everyone's help. During the mission, the 30 or so members who had left also returned to the team. Their expressions were ugly, and the gazes they used to look at Yiqing Luo were filled with hatred. Yiqing Luo could tell. She was right. Ji Zhangtian and the others were blocked by the killers at the entrance of the magic beast forest. Furthermore, Ji Zhangtian brought Lan Ling Nuo as they abandoned those group members and escaped. Those members had all died in the hands of the Assassin Alliance's assassins. Yiqing Luo thought that these group members would at least accuse her of being cold-blooded, accusing her of knowing everything but allowing things to happen. But, from beginning to end, none of them spoke a single word. And towards Yiqing Luo and the rest's arrangements and deployment, they were extremely cooperative. When the youngsters were in charge of killing the beasts, Yiqing Luo and Beiming Lulu were in charge of 3 medicinal herb harvesting missions. After being promoted to Mystic Profound 8th grade, Yiqing Luo clearly felt that no matter if it was speed or skill, it had all increased by more than 1 level. While picking the herbs, she still had the leisure to tease the magical beasts guarding the herbs. By the time they finished all 10 missions and walked out of the magical beast forest, it was already close to midnight. In the pitch-black night sky, a bright moon hung high in the sky, dotted with stars. Having stayed in the magical beast forest for an entire day, the youths immediately felt that the outside world was too beautiful. He no longer had to endure the stench of magical beasts' blood. He no longer had to endure the gloomy cold air from the surroundings. Most importantly, the 10 missions were all completed. The youngsters walked out of the magical beast forest's cold entrance, not bothering about the corpses strewn all over the place, not bothering about the other teams who passed by them. Chapter 625. The 30 over members who had been silent swept a glance at those youngsters lying on the ground. Their gazes swept past those corpses as their brows creased slightly. Following that, they cupped their fists in a manner that wasn't considered polite but wasn't lacking in manners. Since your group's mission has been completed, we've also completed the transaction between the 2 groups, so we shall take our leave now. Saying that, the group of them turned around and left. Wait a minute. Yiqing Luo's clear voice was like a pearl falling on a plate as it reverberated in this silent and spacious magic beast forest entrance. 30 over members stopped in their tracks. Does Miss Yi have any other instructions? Their words had pulled the distance between the 2 of them apart, as though they didn't want to be involved with Yiqing Luo at all. Admiring someone was easy. Hating someone was also very easy. At this very moment, in the 30 members' eyes, Yiqing Luo was an extremely vicious lady who was adept at scheming. In order to protect herself, she didn't mind sacrificing other people's lives. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see the disdain and disgust in the members' eyes as she revealed a sweet smile and took out a piece of xian paper and a pen from the profound phoenix ring. She picked up the pen and wrote the world group's 3 words on the xian paper and immediately removed the mercenary group badge. Twisting the pin on the mercenary group badge, it was a symbol of vice group leader's seal. Yiqing Luo stamped the top of the xian paper and her slender fingers folded the xian paper neatly as she passed it to those members. The leader's expression changed as his brows furrowed. What do you mean by this? A piece of xian paper stamped with vice group leader's badge meant that she wanted to poach them openly. Didn't she despise them for being too old? Their looks weren't high enough. Yiqing Luo smiled charmingly as her long and narrow eyes revealed a captivating charm, as you think. You. This was the first time they saw someone poaching other mercenary groups' mercenaries in such an open and above-board manner. Give up, we are Blue Dragon Mercenary Group's mercenaries, we will only. Don't be in a hurry to reject me. Yiqing Luo interrupted the members' oaths with a smiling face as her fair fingers waved the xian paper. I admire your characters and am extremely interested in unpolished jades like you. The faces of more than 30 members twisted. Since they were unpolished jade, what was there to admire? Weren't they supposed to boast about it when they were poaching people? What kind of disparagement was this? You need to polish yourselves. You need to find the right way to guide them. Yiqing Luo ignored the expressions on their faces as she said word by word, this is the proof that I'm giving you. You can keep it first, perhaps. You might need it in future. Of course, if you're completely sure that you want to place your future and your life on the Blue Dragon Mercenary Group, then you can directly tear this piece of paper. The leader of the group stared at the paper with a hesitant expression. Listening to a 15-year-old girl say in an extremely mature manner that she wanted to guide them and polish them, this piece of unpolished jade. This feeling, it was so King strange. However, none of them could refute him. They had already seen Yiqing Luo's ability in the Magic Beast Forest. However, why was she so confident that they would definitely keep her proof? The leader's peripheral vision swept past the expressions of the few people beside him as he stretched out his hand and received that xian paper. In front of Yiqing Luo, he was about to tear it down. We don't need it. Chapter 626. Yiqing Luo spoke extremely slowly as her voice was filled with gentleness, leisurely and contented. She didn't anxiously hope that they would agree, nor did she have the feeling that it didn't matter whether they agreed or not. She just calmly stated the truth. Your choice to me doesn't have much use. But to you. It's a choice of fate. Yiqing Luo saw the leader's hand which was about to tear the paper stopped as he stiffly maintained the action of tearing the paper. He was stunned for some time before he stiffly moved his arm. What do you have to make us believe you? Yiqing Luo's smile was brimming with confidence, based on the fact that I'm Yiqing Luo. The 30 or so members were completely stunned. Just how arrogant was this young lady? Based on the fact that she was Yiqing Luo. She had that much confidence in herself. Not knowing why, the group members had an urge to believe her. In their minds, the scene of what Ji Tian had done for Lan Ling Nuo appeared, which made one's heart turn cold. Looking at the ground full of corpses, their hearts ached. The main culprit of all these was Yiqing Luo. But Ji Tian definitely had something to do with it. Ji Tian abandoned his own brothers and under his brother's cover, he left. Yet, these brothers of his had died here. Their group leader abandoned them. His 5 fingers curled up one by one. The leader of the group grabbed the piece of paper in his hand, as though he was making a huge decision. In the end, the leader kept the paper into his bosom as he gritted his teeth. I hope that we will never have the chance to meet again. Yiqing Luo smiled in disbelief. I'm afraid this chance is not too far away. The 30 or so members left angrily. Looking at their departing figures, Kitty Lee blinked her watery eyes as she hooked onto Yiqing Luo's arm. Sister, why did you give them that piece of proof? The world group, which was personally written by Yiqing Luo, was stamped by the vice group leader. This piece of paper represented Yiqing Luo. Giving this piece of paper to those people in Blue Dragon Group, wasn't she afraid that these despicable people would use that piece of proof to secretly do some sinister things? Momentarily, everyone was unable to understand Yiqing Luo's thoughts. These people, if we can rope them in and keep them for our own use, as long as we give them enough sincerity, they will definitely follow us through life and death. In just a short period of time, Yiqing Luo had already understood these people's characters. These people valued friendship and loyalty. With proper training, it wouldn't take long for them to stand on their own in the mercenary world. But aren't we going to be in the academy? Yan Xiaoyi didn't understand what Yiqing Luo meant. All the members of the world group were all students of the devil class. They went to school together and cultivated together on holidays. They only had 3 days a month. If you were to accept these people into the world group, wouldn't it be a huge mess? A portion of them are students of the Celestial Phoenix Academy. Their holidays are the same as ours. Yiqing Luo explained patiently. The other group are professional mercenaries, relying on completing missions to support themselves. We can establish a second group, and when we are all in the academy, we can represent the world group to head to the Mercenary Association to accept missions and grind for some honor points. They. Qiao Jin shook his head in disagreement. Even if it's the second group, they still represent the world group. If they were to use this opportunity to defame us. Chapter 627. I understand Qing Luo's intention. Long Yunzhan nodded. I agree. Yiqing Luo's lips curled as she exchanged glances with him and smiled. It was because Long Yunzhan didn't reject her intention earlier. That was why Yiqing Luo passed the proof to those group members after they left the Magic Beast Forest. Long Yunzhan didn't reject this decision. The others would also agree and listen to her. The riddle which the two of them were playing earlier was because of this matter. Seeing that Long Yunzhan had already spoken, the other youngsters had their suspicions, but they still chose to believe in their judgment. They knew that Yiqing Luo and Long Yunzhan would absolutely not harm the world group. Lil Luo, today's biggest contributor is me. Don't tell me you shouldn't give me a little special reward. An arm went past Yiqing Luo's hand as it circled around her slender waist. Following that, a refreshing and elegant sandalwood fragrance assaulted their nostrils. The man's broad embrace was tightly pressed against the woman's soft back. His smooth lower jaw was pressed against Yiqing Luo's shoulder as his voice was deep and mellow. The other hand went past her other shoulder as it clasped her lower jaw. He forced her gaze to look in his direction. Yiqing Luo's thick and dense eyelashes fluttered like a butterfly's wings, her bright pupils reflected that peerless beauty of a face. That pair of watery peach blossom eyes gazed at her lovingly. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly trembled as she felt her cheeks turning red, as though her energy had been sucked dry by him. Evildoer. A living evildoer who could bring calamity to the country and people. Her peripheral vision saw those youngsters' ridiculing gazes, and Yiqing Luo's cheeks turned even hotter as she turned around and faced Dmo Xian as she pushed his chest. Nonsense, the biggest contributor is obviously me. Then I'll give you a reward. The man's voice had just ended when Yiqing Luo felt her lower jaw tightening. Following that, a warm touch covered her pink lips. That elegant sandalwood fragrance became more and more intense as it spread in her mouth. His kiss was strong and overbearing as it sealed her struggles and sealed her consciousness. What remained was only a kiss that was compatible with him. In Yiqing Luo's mind, it was as though there was a taut string that suddenly broke apart. A scorching flame was burning in his body. Bit by bit, it eroded her will. Yiqing Luo's little hand, which was on Dmo Xian's chest, gradually reduced in strength. Dmo Xian hugged her slender waist tighter and tighter, as though he wanted to melt her into his bones. Just as Yiqing Luo's consciousness started to blur and was about to sink into oblivion, her peripheral vision swept onto the youngsters who were standing by the side, staring at them in a daze. Yiqing Luo's face suddenly flushed red. Ah! Yiqing Luo didn't know where the energy came from as she pushed him away fiercely. Who wants your reward? This monster. If it was in private, it would be fine if the two of them were intimate. Kissing her in front of all these brothers, with so many pairs of eyes, how was she going to maintain her dignity in front of her brothers in the future? Yiqing Luo's face was so red that it looked like water was about to drip out. Qing Luo, it's alright, you guys carry on, just treat as if we don't exist. That's right, that's right. We're already used to being abused. You don't have to worry about us at all. If you want to kiss us, kiss us. If you want to hug us, hug us. The youngsters' ridiculing words came one after another. It was because of their ridicule that the atmosphere became relaxed once again. Today's exhaustion in the magic beast forest was swept away in the laughter. Hearing the youngsters' ridicule, Yiqing Luo's face turned red as she stared resentfully at Dmo Xian. But she saw him clutching his chest as his brows creased slightly. Chapter 628. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped. She suddenly thought of something as the smile on her lips disappeared. She took quick steps towards Dmo Xian as she stretched out her hand and tugged his collar. You, come with me. As expected, with this tug, she could clearly feel that his body was slightly stiff. Although Dmo Xian maintained his smile and gentle gaze. But that slight crease on his brows, Yiqing Luo saw it clearly. Go back to the mansion and have a good rest. We'll be returning to the academy tomorrow. Yiqing Luo turned her head to look at those youngsters who were sniggering behind her. She couldn't be bothered to explain to them, I'll be back later, no need to wait for me. It's alright if you don't come back, we all understand. It's the last day of the holiday, just accompany the Overlord well. Tomorrow Qing Luo still needs to go to the academy. Overlord, you'd better take it easy. Yiqing Luo. Damn it, indeed she had no way to establish her prestige, these youngsters weren't afraid of her. Little Nine. Yiqing Luo shouted and Little Nine's tail shook. The palm-sized fox instantly turned into a huge fox. Under the group of youngsters, I understand, gazes, Yiqing Luo's face turned black as she grabbed Dmo Xian's hand and leapt onto Little Nine's back. Yiqing Luo's destination was that garden which Dmo Xian had given her the map of Death God Castle. The garden was still filled with flowers as hundreds of flowers bloomed. The fragrance in the air lingered around her nose. Standing in the middle of the flowers, Dmo Xian's eyes were filled with smiles. His curved peach blossom eyes were long and narrow with a demonic charm. Little Luo, the same location, the same you and me, are you hinting me to do what we did here that day? His tone was extremely joyous. That pitch-black obsidian-like eye started to spread out as it started to thicken. Yiqing Luo wasn't like the past, revealing a lady's coquettish side because of Dmo Xian's teasing. Her expression was grave as she grabbed Dmo Xian's extended wrist and with a tilt, she pressed him into the flowers. Yiqing Luo sat on Dmo Xian's abdomen as her hands tore his clothes. Dmo Xian caught the two little hands which were pulling randomly as he placed it by his lips and planted a kiss on it. Little Luo, are you trying to force yourself? His tone was evil, and his long and narrow eyes exuded a devilish charm that was incomparably alluring. Yiqing Luo didn't say a word as her face was still sunken, struggling to tug at his clothes. Little Luo, Dmo Xian's voice abruptly turned heavier as he tightened his grip on her wrist. Stop fooling around. Why are you hiding? Yiqing Luo sneered as her charming eyes were filled with chilliness. I forced myself on you, shouldn't you feel happy? If it was during normal times, Dmo Xian would definitely turn from guest to host. Indeed, I'm very happy. Dmo Xian stared into her eyes and spoke in a serious tone, but Lil Luo, you're a lady and a lady's reputation is very important. I hope that the relationship between us can be placed on our wedding night, and take it a step deeper. Pooh! Yiqing Luo's sneer grew thicker. Since when did Dmo Xian know what reputation was? He had always done things his own way and did not care about what others thought of him. Talk about honor with her now. But, I can't wait. Yiqing Luo's wrist nimbly flipped as she held Dmo Xian's hand, while her other hand speedily unbuttoned his clothes. A soft sigh which could not be heard came from the depths of Dmo Xian's throat. His clothes were open, revealing a muscular chest. But on that chest, there was an extremely glaring red, piercing Yiqing Luo's eyes. Chapter 629. Why didn't you tell me you were injured? Yiqing Luo stared at the red gauze, her fingers trembling as she touched it. However, before he could touch the gauze, he retracted his hand while trembling. Dmo Xian was injured. The high and mighty Di Zun was injured. It's not a big injury. I'm fine. Dmo Xian's lips twitched slightly as he raised his hand to caress Yiqing Luo's fine black hair. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you would be worried. There was so much blood flowing from this wound, how could it be just a small injury? If it was just a small injury, a few pills could solve it. Why would there be so much blood? Suddenly, Yiqing Luo recalled something. That map. The bloodstains on the map. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly trembled. Your injury. Was it when you went to Death God Castle to help me draw the map, you got injured? That's right, the bloodstains on the map. Ever since Dmo Xian dashed into Death God Castle and brought her away from Zhu Wu Axian, she thought that she had guessed wrongly and assumed that Dmo Xian wasn't injured, hence she didn't probe further. If she hadn't noticed that something was wrong with his expression, she probably wouldn't have noticed it. A sense of vexation and guilt towards Dmo Xian arose from the bottom of her heart. She was not a qualified woman who could stay by Dmo Xian's side. She had never properly cared for Dmo Xian. It would only create one trouble after another for Dmo Xian. The more she thought, the tighter Yiqing Luo's heart became. There was a suffocating feeling in her throat. It was so uncomfortable that she couldn't even breathe smoothly. His nose felt sour, as if something was about to gush out of his eyes. No. Dmo Xian answered without any hesitation, seeing through the guilt and thoughts in Yiqing Luo's eyes. His long arm stretched out and pulled Yiqing Luo into his embrace. Don't let your imagination run wild, I'm fine. His reply was straightforward and decisive, but it also indirectly proved that this injury was indeed the injury suffered in Death God Castle. For her, he had been injured, and for her, he had stayed by her side with his injuries. He had been pretending to be fine because he didn't want her to worry. Yiqing Luo's eyes gradually turned red. How could this man be so foolish? Feeling heartache. Dmo Xian's fingers slowly brushed past Yiqing Luo's cheeks, his fingertips paused at the corner of her eyes. If you can't bear to let me feel pain, kiss me and it won't hurt anymore. You. Even at this moment, he could still act like a hooligan with a straight face. Yiqing Luo stared at Dmo Xian as she suddenly pushed his hand away. He took out some pills and gauze from the profound phoenix ring. You knew that I would be worried, yet you still hid the fact that you were injured. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips, her eyes filled with anger. You only let me know now, I'm even more worried, all right. She untied Dmo Xian's bloody gauze and threw it aside. Yiqing Luo then looked seriously at the wound on Dmo Xian's chest. It was a wound caused by a sharp weapon. The wound was not deep, but it happened to be close to the heart. Fortunately, Dmo Xian managed to evade in time and did not suffer any fatal injuries. Sharp weapons. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted as she was already certain that Dmo Xian's injury was caused when he was challenging the mechanisms in Death God Castle, when he triggered the mechanism. That was also such an intricate map. The route towards the exquisite pagoda was drawn out clearly, and every single mechanism was marked out clearly. If it wasn't for the fact that he had tried every single mechanism, how could it be drawn out so intricately? The contours of Dmo Xian's face were extremely gentle, and the gaze which he gazed at Yiqing Luo was filled with tenderness and pampering. One was bandaging his wound, while the other was staring at her tenderly and sweetly. The breeze blew, as the flower petals danced. Pieces of flower petals were like dancing butterflies, lingering between the two of them. Chapter 630. After Yiqing Luo was done with the bandaging, she helped Dmo Xian to adjust his clothes properly and was about to speak. His line of sight met with a calm sleeping face. A man with outstanding looks, no matter from which angle, was so handsome that it made one want to scream. Not knowing when, he had fallen into a deep sleep. He was in a deep sleep. Even when she slowly moved her body and laid down beside him, he didn't wake up. Usually, he was vigilant and could even sense a gust of wind. His injury was too serious. Yiqing Luo's heart ached as she pursed her lips tightly, as she half propped up her body and leaned beside him, staring at his face. The man in his sleep, his brows were tightly knitted into a bundle. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but stretched out her hand and swept past the wrinkles between his brows, as she gently caressed it. Perhaps it was the softness of her fingers, perhaps it was the gentleness of her fingertips, perhaps it was the familiarity of her scent. That tightly knitted brows, slowly smoothed out. Lil Luo, A soft murmur spilled out from his thin lips. Following that, her hand was accurately held in the palm of the man's hand. His fingers tightened, as though he was holding the most precious thing in the world, tightly gripping it. Her heart suddenly increased the rate of its beating. Every time, it fiercely pounded against her throat. A gush of warmth slowly flowed from the bottom of her heart. She held that hand, slowly lowered her body, and planted a kiss on his pale thin lips. Silly girl. A helpless sigh spilled out from between her lips that were so tightly pressed together. The next day, Yiqing Luo was woken up by Dmo Xian. She rubbed her eyes, got up and was about to tear open Dmo Xian's clothes, wanting to take a look at his wound, and at the same time help him change his dressing, but was stopped by Dmo Xian. She should go to the academy. Yiqing Luo used both carrot and stick, but was unable to make Dmo Xian loosen his mouth, so she could only helplessly let him return to the palace to recuperate. She was going back to the academy today, so Dmo Xian need not worry about her leading the brothers on experience learning and getting injured. Sending Dmo Xian off on little nine with her eyes, Yiqing Luo then returned to the mansion alone. The youngsters had long put on their academy uniforms, as they lined up neatly in the garden. When they saw Yiqing Luo, they started to tease Yiqing Luo that she really didn't return for the entire night. But teasing was just teasing, they still understood Yiqing Luo's character very well. They were all clear that there was nothing between Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian. They were tactful enough not to intentionally ask where Dmo Xian had gone to. Amidst the laughter, everyone's serious mood from early in the morning also became relaxed. The 3 days of their holiday were spent in abundance. There were more than 10 youths who had successfully advanced a grade in these 3 days. As for those who did not advance, they could clearly feel that their physical fitness and overall strength had been greatly improved. This was the power that came from constantly fighting in dangerous situations. Qing Luo. Xiao Jin walked over with a space bag. Last night, Shi Ju came back with a space bag in his mouth. It was filled with. He took out a black suit from his pocket. The flame-like cherry blossom embroidery on his right sleeve was extremely obvious. Wasn't it the uniform that the Blue Dragon mercenary group people wore yesterday? It must be Yi Qing Luo's order for Shi Ju to retrieve these uniforms. Why did Yi Qing Luo want these uniforms? Could it be that she wanted them to wash it before wearing it? Not to mention that these uniforms were tattered in this round's experience learning, ugly and smelly. Just these uniforms, if those Blue Dragon mercenary group members wore them, they wouldn't want to wear them anymore. Chapter 631. Xiao Jin didn't understand why as he carried his space bag and turned around, calling the youngsters to retrieve firewood from the kitchen as he directly set up a fire in the courtyard. We've given Blue Dragon mercenary group 54 sets. Yi Qing Luo suddenly opened her mouth as she called out to Xiao Jin, before you burn it, count how many sets there are. These sets of clothes were indeed brought back by her. Even the group uniforms on those corpses who had died at the entrance of the Magic Beast Forest, Yi Qing Luo also asked Shi Ju to bring them back. She picked up the number of sets which Ji Tsangtian had worn away. Based on Ji Tsangtian's character, after he returned to his own camp and saw his disheveled self, then seeing those 30 over members returning, looking at the clothes they were wearing, he would recall the humiliation he had suffered in the Magic Beast Forest. He would definitely be fuming with rage. She asked them to change out of their clothes and throw them out of sight and out of mind. Yi Qing Luo wouldn't give them any chance to malign the world group. If one set of clothes was used, it could possibly cause a huge impact on the world group. Yi Qing Luo wanted to eliminate all possibilities. Xiao Jin seemed to have understood something as he laughed out loudly. You're the one who thought it through thoroughly. Burn. Burn all these clothes. Anyway, for the next 1 month, they wouldn't be able to wear the group uniform which belonged to them. They had plenty of time to customize a new batch of uniforms. The material and enchantment as well as the gravity belt had to be done meticulously. These were all things which Yan Xiaoyi had discussed with the tailor's shop early on. They only needed to wait for a month before they could collect it from the tailor's shop. Not long later, the courtyard was lit up with flames as pieces of uniforms were thrown into the flames. A total of 54 pieces, no more and no less. Xiao Jin was burning as he told Yi Qing Luo the numbers which he had counted. Yi Qing Luo nodded as her heart which was hanging in the balance was finally put down. Lighting a fire in the courtyard so early in the morning, are you trying to burn down this huge mansion? Suddenly an old but powerful voice was heard from the end of the courtyard. Following that, they saw an elderly dressed in a white robe walking over leisurely. It seemed as though he had just casually taken a step, but in a blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of Yi Qing Luo and the others. Expert. This was absolutely an expert. The youngsters' gazes were fixed on that elderly. Why did he look a little familiar? Yi Qing Luo also had this feeling. He furrowed his brows and stared at the old man as he thought about it for a long time. In the end, he said with uncertainty, "Are you Holy Pirate?" The old man raised his eyebrows and raised his hand to touch his grizzled hair. His eyes were bright. After taking a bath, trimming my hair, and changing my clothes, I'm so handsome that you can't recognize me. It was really Holy Pirate. One must know that when he was rescued from Death God Castle's dungeon, he was a person who had not bathed for 10 years. His body was so dirty that he was almost covered in lice and bedbugs. How could she recognize a face that was completely black? After bringing God Thief back to the mansion, Yiqing Luo's entire mind was on the Dark Forces matters and the other missions, totally throwing him aside. He didn't expect Holy Pirate to take care of himself. God knows how much water he had to wash himself to be so clean. Little girl, are you going to the academy? Go in peace. Leave the mansion and the world group to me. God Thief patted his chest. Why did Yiqing Luo feel that this old man was extremely unreliable? Chapter 632. Yiqing Luo felt that this old man was even more unreliable. However, he was still an old man that he had picked up. Moreover, he was once the #1 holy thief in the Nirvana realm. Even if he had not been able to stretch his muscles and bones for 10 years, he would be able to recover his skills in a few days. Even if he wasn't as powerful as before, he still had the ability to protect himself. As long as he could find the feeling he once had, the holy pirate of the past could return. After all, to become the #1 holy thief, one had to rely on absolute power. She could not bring Holy Pirate to the college. It would be a good idea to let Holy Pirate manage the mansion. What's more, the 30-odd members of the Blue Dragon group might come to report to him. Yiqing Luo still handed the manor over to God Thief to look after. As for the world group, Yiqing Luo didn't hand it over to God Thief, only instructing him repeatedly that if anyone were to bring the proof of the world group seal over to them, then leave them behind. By the time they had arranged everything, it was already morning, which was around 7 or 8 in the morning. Yiqing Luo and the rest left the mansion. They didn't arrive at the academy together. Instead, they split up into several teams. If he were to stay by Yiqing Luo's side, he would probably become the center of attention again. It would also easily expose the devil class to the public. Yiqing Luo only brought Yi Fengyu along and walked openly through the academy's main entrance. Today was the first day of school, and there was a sea of people at the entrance of the academy, with an endless stream of horses and carriages. After Yiqing Luo and Yi Fengyu walked into the academy, they indeed became the center of attention. After all, what happened in the Three Springs sect on a holiday was too unbelievable. First, Yiqing Jian and Ling Fenghua's secret affair was exposed. It was exposed that they were in the Crown Prince Palace's garden, in broad daylight. Moreover, Yiqing Qian was tormented till she was injured. Of course, if Yiqing Qian and Ling Fenghua were in love with each other, then it was perfectly justifiable. But unfortunately, Ling Fenghua was Yiqing Qian's 7th sister and also Yiqing Luo's fiancée. This was the loss of morals, this was the wrong view of the world. Yiqing Qian's deeds naturally affected Three Springs sect. Naturally it would implicate Yiqing Luo. It was like someone's father was a murderer. Everyone would subconsciously think that the whole family was a murderer when they saw that person's family. While everyone was sympathizing with Yiqing Luo, at the same time, they felt that Yiqing Luo and Yiqing Jian were almost the same. After all, they were taught by the same father. But, after that, news of Yiqing Luo clashing with the high profound class students at Heavenly Fortune Inn and finally being taken away by the Overlord's sacred beast, Nine-Tailed Fox, started to spread. While everyone was ridiculing Yiqing Qian, no one dared to bring Yiqing Luo along. It could be said that during the 3 days of vacation, the first miss and 7th miss of the Three Springs sect manor had become the talk of the town. You still have the guts to come to the academy. How shameless. Just as everyone was discussing in hushed voices, a sharp and ear-piercing voice rang out. Shortly after, a young girl walked over with her hands on her hips. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered, but the young lady was standing right in front of her and stretched out her hand to block her. This was the entrance to the academy, and there were many students coming and going. On seeing that someone dared to find fault with Yiqing Luo, they all stopped in their tracks to watch excitedly. Your eldest sister did such a shameless thing and was chased out of Three Springs City. She's setting off today, aren't you going to send her off? That young lady spoke in a weird tone. Shangguan Liuli. Chapter 633. You. Shangguan Liuli's face turned gloomy as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. Such a huge matter had happened in Three Springs sect, how could Yiqing Luo still remain so calm? Yiqing Qian was her elder sister. The Three Springs sect was her backer. Now that there were rumors and slanderous discussions, she could still smile. Was she intentionally acting so calm, or was she too cold-blooded? Shangguan Liuli's heart seeped out a sliver of coldness. Yiqing Luo's gaze casually swept past the surrounding students as her charming eyes remained calm. Firstly, whatever Yiqing Qian did, she's shameless and it has nothing to do with me. Secondly, you're an unmarried young lady and in front of everyone, you dared to say such shameless things that Yiqing Luo had done. This is enough to prove that the thoughts in your mind are also dirty and shameless. When Yiqing Luo said the second point, Shangguan Liuli's steely green face instantly turned red. She clenched her teeth tightly as her 5 fingers clutched the corner of her clothes as her fingertips turned white. You're talking nonsense. I didn't. However, Shangguan Liuli's rebuttal didn't have much confidence. Her imposing manner had been completely suppressed by Yiqing Luo. The surrounding students' gazes towards Shangguan Liuli had also changed. Those pairs of unclear eyes looked at Shangguan Liuli as though her mind was really filled with dirty thoughts. There were even some male students who had already revealed a covetous gaze towards her. Shangguan Liuli had never suffered such humiliation before. Since when had she been stared at in such a blatant manner? Her entire face instantly flushed red from embarrassment and indignation. Her petite body was shaking non-stop as a pair of watery eyes stared resentfully at Yiqing Luo. But Yiqing Luo's expression remained calm as though she hadn't noticed Shangguan Liuli's vengeful gaze. Or perhaps she totally didn't put Shangguan Liuli in her eyes. Following that, Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled as she revealed an elegant smile. Thirdly, are you sure that Yiqing Qian will be chased out of Three Springs City today? What do you mean? Shangguan Liuli was startled, her beautiful eyes widening. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly, her long and narrow eyes revealed a hint of ridicule regarding the second half of the rumor. I'm afraid the chess player did not tell you about it. A chess player? No matter how silly Shangguan Liuli was, she understood Yiqing Luo's meaning. She was being used by someone. Looking at Yiqing Luo's serene eyes, Shangguan Liuli's heart trembled as she suddenly thought of something as her face turned pale. Yesterday, when she had a flower tea gathering with the other ladies from the noble families, she overheard Lu Shuiyu and Lu Shuelon discussing the Three Springs sect. That was when he found out that something huge had happened to Three Springs sect's Yiqing Jian. The Lu sisters kept on shifting the topic to Yiqing Luo, talking about it in a few words. Yiqing Luo and Yiqing Jian were sisters, so naturally they received the same education. Yiqing Qian was shameless and Yiqing Luo must also be a shameless lady. Following that, they started on various topics, pointing out that Yiqing Luo was able to gain Dmo Xian's favor, was absolutely because of her foxy skills. Hearing these, Shangguan Liuli, who originally bore a grudge against Yiqing Luo, how could she possibly let go of this chance to ridicule Yiqing Luo? Her reputation was the most important thing for a lady. Because of this, Shangguan Liuli blocked the academy's entrance early in the morning, just to humiliate Yiqing Luo fiercely, ruining her reputation, making her the laughingstock of the entire Three Springs City. But Yiqing Luo's performance was too calm. So calm that Shangguan Liuli started to feel a little guilty. The second half of the rumor. We'll be able to see it soon. Yiqing Luo's gaze shot towards a direction not too far away, as a teasing smile flashed past her eyes. Chapter 634. As expected, at the instant when Yiqing Luo's words had just ended, she heard astonished cries coming from the huge crowd of people. Following that, a luxurious and exquisite carriage which was inlaid with sparkling crystals was seen slowly approaching. Wasn't the person in front of the carriage the current second prince Ling Fengying? Ever since Ling Fenghua fell from power, second prince's status had risen along with it. Numerous powerhouses and nobles all treated second prince as the crown prince's candidate, which was the future monarch. Even now, the crown prince's position had yet to be decided. But after all, in the entire West continent, only second prince had the ability to become the crown prince. Because of this, when these people saw Ling Fengying, all of them revealed a fawning smile as they went up to him in an attempt to attract his attention. Especially those elders who were sending their children to school, they all went up to greet him. Ling Fengying maintained his gentle and refined smile from start to finish, his handsome features looked innocent and harmless. If one didn't know him well, just based on his looks, they would only think that he was a weak young man without the strength to truss a chicken, a soft-footed prawn that could be easily pinched. This kind of person easily made others feel close to him. This kind of person was even more welcomed by the imperial court's ministers. But to be able to grow up in the royal family, to be able to establish a batch of imperial court forces under Ling Fenghua's oppression, and also to pull in a portion of the external forces unknowingly. Finally, after Ling Fenghua met with a mishap, every step he took was so natural. Yiqing Luo didn't believe that this second prince was someone who was easy to deal with. Shengguan Liuli saw Ling Fengying at one glance as her eyes shone, its second prince. That dainty face was an obvious bashfulness of a young lady meeting her sweetheart. She took quick steps forward and squeezed past those people who were flocking towards her as she pounced beside Ling Fengying, second prince. Ling Fengying, who had just flipped down the horse, had a smile on his face, as though he was bathed in the spring breeze, warming the earth. He passed the reins to the footboy and his arm was covered by a touch of warmth. Lowering his eyes, he saw Shengguan Liuli's bashful smile as she looked at him with a beaming face. Second prince, you haven't come to Shengguan residence to see me for a long time. Her tone was filled with tenderness. The onlookers looked at the two of them with dubious gazes. The second prince was so familiar with the daughter of the Shengguan family. From time to time, he would go to the Shengguan residence to visit the daughter of the Shengguan housekeeper. Could it be that the second prince was going to marry into the Shengguan family? 5th Miss Shengguan. Ling Fengying calmly retracted his hand as he silently pulled the distance between the two of them apart with a gentle smile. A few days ago I consulted Shengguan family head about the plan to control the flood in the North Village and it has already started to be implemented. I've been busy with this matter and forgot to thank Shengguan family head. It's this prince's fault. In just a few words, he had completely explained the ambiguous meaning in Shengguan Liuli's words. Everyone was enlightened. It turned out that the second prince went to the Shengguan residence to ask for a plan to control the flooding in Beituan. The second prince was indeed a benevolent prince who cared for the common people. As expected, he was a smart man. He was definitely not on the same level as Ling Fenghua. If this time round, even if she hadn't opened up an entrance for Ling Fengying, not too long in the future, Ling Fengying would use his own method to open up an entrance for himself. The moment the words about controlling the flood were explained, naturally no one would doubt the authenticity of these words. Because Shengguan family head was once an official in the imperial court, hence he was in charge of this aspect. Chapter 635. However, Shengguan Liuli, who was fixated on her Prince Charming, did not bring her brain with her. Or rather, Shengguan Liuli had no brains at all. She totally didn't understand the meaning in Ling Fengying's words, nor did she notice the distance that Ling Fengying had pulled apart from her. The second prince cares about the people. Father will not blame you. Saying that, Shengguan Liuli took another step forward as she stretched out her hand to hook onto Ling Fengying's arm once again. second prince, even if the problem of controlling the flood is settled, you can also come to Shangguan residence to take a look at Liuli. Liuli really misses you. Hearing this sentence, Yiqing Luo almost coughed out. Should she say that Shangguan Liuli was stupid, or that she knew how to play with people's hearts? Shangguan Liuli would stop her at the academy's entrance and use Yiqing Qian's matter to ruin her reputation. She probably knew the importance of a good reputation to a woman. But unfortunately, the expression on Shangguan Liuli's face and the words she said revealed her admiration towards Lang Fengying, as well as her private ambiguous relationship with Lang Fenghua. She was certain that Lang Fengying would marry her. One must know that Shangguan Liuli's performance in front of everyone had totally tagged her as Lang Fengying. If Lang Fengying didn't marry her, Shangguan Liuli would probably be single for the rest of her life. After all, Lang Fengying's identity was there for all to see. It was very likely that he would be the future monarch. Who would dare to touch a woman that the monarch might have had an affair with? What Yiqing Luo was thinking was naturally what everyone was thinking. All of them discussed in low voices, trying to guess the relationship between Shangguan Liuli and the second prince. Right at this moment, the curtain of the luxurious carriage was pinched by a white finger, and then a sweet-sounding voice was heard. Fifth Miss Shangguan, in the heart of the second prince, there is only the West Continent and all the common people of the West Continent. Could it be that fifth Miss Shangguan hopes that the second prince will abandon the common people and go to the Shangguan residence to see you every day? His tone was filled with disdain and mockery. Ding ding dong dong, the sound of jewelry colliding against each other could be heard. Immediately, a woman dressed in luxurious clothing came out of the carriage. Lang Fengying immediately went over and stretched out his hand to support that woman. Shangguan Liuli's hand, which she tried to pull over, naturally missed. That young lady's little hand was placed on the back of Lang Fengying's hand as she slowly walked down the carriage. When everyone saw the woman's face clearly, they all cried out in disbelief. Yiqing Qian. Shangguan Liuli's eyes widened in shock. This woman was wearing a greenish-white academy uniform, and there were a few dazzling accessories on her waist. The most eye-catching thing about her was her face. Her makeup was exquisite, and her deliberately trimmed eyebrows were full of heroic spirit. Her seemingly simple yet graceful hair was pinned with a dazzling hairpin and hair ornament. Wasn't this the Yiqing Qian whom the monarch had assigned to King Ping, the one who was going to follow King Ping to the fief? At this time, wasn't she already in the carriage arranged by the monarch and leaving Three Springs City? She actually wore the academy uniform and appeared in the Heavenly Academy. Moreover, he had come together with the second prince. For so many years, the second prince had always kept a low profile and had a good character. He had never had any bad rumors with any woman. If one were to say that Shangguan Liuli's ambiguous words had stirred up gossip in everyone's hearts, most people still did not quite believe it. But the minute they saw Yiqing Qian, their gossipy hearts started to boil. Second prince and Yiqing Qian. Who was Yiqing Qian? Second prince's future sister-in-law. She had a relationship with second prince's eldest brother. How did second prince get involved with Yiqing Qian? And from the looks of this situation, from second prince's attitude towards Yiqing Qian, it was obviously. Chapter 636. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. She wanted to ask, the male god in her heart, holding the hand of the woman whom she despised from the bottom of her heart, walking arrogantly in front of her, how would she feel? Shangguan Liuli only knew that a cord in her brain had snapped. Suddenly, it exploded, leaving only a blank space. Her body had already started to move according to Shangguan Liuli's most genuine thoughts. She speedily walked in front of Lang Fengying, blocking his path as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Qian. Second prince, what's your relationship with this slut? The surrounding crowd stuck their heads out, expressing that they were extremely curious about the answer to this question. Fifth Miss Shangwan, what relationship I have with second prince, is none of your business. Yi Qingqian's brows rose as her lips curled into a contemptuous smile. A good dog doesn't block the way. Fifth Miss Shangwan, please move aside. You actually dare to call me a dog? Shangwan Liuli's cheeks flushed red, especially that smirk of ridicule in Yi Qingqian's eyes, pierced deeply into her eyes. Shangwan Liuli bit her lower lip tightly, suppressing the surging anger in her chest as she stubbornly looked at Lang Fengying, second prince. Don't be cheated by this vixen, she's simply a shameless slut. With a bam, Shangwan Liuli's petite body was sent flying. Yi Qingqian retracted her hand as that usually gentle white lotus face was filled with arrogance, an unconcealable arrogance. Shangwan Liuli, don't be so shameless when I give you face. Who gave you the right to insult me? This action made the surrounding students gasp in shock. In their eyes, Yi Qingqian was a pure white lotus. Yi Qingqian was the #1 beauty in Three Springs City. She was beautiful, had high innate talent, had a gentle character and treated others with courtesy. In other words, she was a big white lotus who gathered all the advantages. This was the first time they saw Yi Qingqian revealing such an arrogant and haughty expression. This was also the first time they saw Yi Qingqian slapping someone without any explanation. Yi Qingluo was also slightly shocked. She squinted her eyes as she stared at Yi Qingqian with interest. It turned out that her big sister, who was like a white lotus, had completely darkened after experiencing this incident. But that's right. His reputation and whatnot were already ruined. No matter how Yi Qingqian acted, or how she acted as a white lotus, the people of Three Springs City wouldn't believe it, and neither would the people of the West Continent. Stealing his sister's fiancé was the same as stealing his sister's fiancé. Rolling around with his sister's fiancé was the same as rolling around with his sister's fiancé. Everything was the truth. There was no way to refute that. It would be better to just turn evil and not bother to wear that hypocritical mask anymore. In any case, he would be scolded for pretending to be innocent. Even if he turned dark, he would still be scolded. Darkening, at least he felt good in his heart, and he didn't have to be so aggrieved. He had to admit that Yi Qingqian's move was extremely good. As though noticing Yi Qingluo's gaze, that arrogant lady's eyebrows rose as her vision shot towards Yi Qingluo. Then, a murderous look flashed across her eyes. She lifted her hand and wiped it across her neck. Her fiery red lips curled into an arrogant, cold smile. Her lips wriggled as she spat out a few words soundlessly. You, just wait and see. Yi Qingluo's expression didn't change as she didn't respond to Yi Qingqian's provocation. From the time she heard the high-profound class discussing about Yi Qingqian and second princes hooking up, Yi Qingluo guessed that this big sister White Lotus was like a weed with tenacious vitality. Yi Qingqian was still alive. As long as Yi Qingqian was given a chance to make a comeback, she would disregard everything to get this chance. Chapter 637. But what made Yi Qingluo curious was, what conditions did Yi Qingqian set out to attract Lang Fengying's wild ambition? He didn't care about Yi Qingqian's current disreputable reputation, which would affect his current status, and personally sent Yi Qingqian to the academy to build up her reputation. With second prince as her backing, everyone's discussions and ridicule towards Yi Qingqian were more or less restrained. Shangwan Liuli was beaten into a daze. She sat on the ground in a daze, clutching her swollen red cheek, as blood seeped out from the corner of her mouth. Yi Qingqian actually hit him. Yi Qingqian, that slut, actually dared to hit her. Shangwan Liuli was infuriated. With a sudden sound, she sprang up from the ground, as she raised her hand and sent a slap towards Yi Qingqian's face. You slutty vixen, I asked you to hit me, I asked you to use your unrestrained nature to seduce second prince. Shangguan Liuli had always been arrogant and willful. Since young, she had only suffered a loss in Yiqing Luo's hands. At this moment, Yiqing Qian also dared to press on top of her. Especially Yiqing Qian, who had snatched away the male god in her heart. Shangguan Liuli instantly shifted her hatred towards Yiqing Luo onto Yiqing Qian. But before she could pounce on her, a figure dashed out from the crowd, blocking Shangguan Liuli's way. Following that, she heard an apologetic voice, "Second prince, eldest Miss Yi, my sister and I had a small conflict today, and I've been suppressing my anger in my heart, so I acted up for no reason, disturbing second prince and eldest Miss Yi. It's my sister's fault, I apologize on behalf of my sister." Third brother. Shangguan Liuli's eyes widened, as she stared in disbelief at the man who was tugging her. Shangguan Fangyi's hand, at a place where no one could see, pinched Shangguan Liuli's flesh fiercely. Shangguan Liuli cried out in pain, as her eyes instantly turned red, as she covered her face aggrievedly, shaking off Shangguan Fangyi's hand, stomping her feet, she turned around and ran away crying. "Second prince, eldest Miss Yi, I'm sorry." Shangguan Fangyi bowed his body slightly. "No worries." Ling Fengning smiled faintly as he shook his head. Perhaps some of this prince's actions had caused 5th Miss Shangguan to misunderstand. "I'm indebted to 5th Miss Shangguan's misplaced love." Shangguan Fangyi's face darkened. Ling Fengning saying these words in front of everyone totally destroyed Shangguan Liuli's reputation. Shangguan Liuli admired the second prince and was rejected by him. Once the news got out, would Shangguan Liuli still be able to find a husband? Which young master would dare to accept her? If Ling Fengning hadn't said these words, Shangguan Fangyi could still use other words to smooth over Shangguan Liuli's earlier actions. But Ling Fengning totally didn't give Shangguan Liuli this chance. Was he standing up for Yiqing Qian? Shangguan Fangyi was overwhelmed with shock as he subconsciously took a look at Yiqing Qian. But he discovered that Yiqing Qian's pretty face was covered with a layer of arrogant frost, looking at him with a smile that didn't look like a smile. That gaze was filled with a strong warning. She was totally different from the usual Yiqing Qian. It was as though he was a completely different person. Shangguan Fangyi lowered his head and looked away. He murmured, "Then I shall not disturb second prince and eldest Miss Yi." Saying that, he chased after the direction which Shangguan Liuli ran towards. Ling Fengning and Yiqing Qian held hands as he sent Yiqing Qian into the academy before he stopped in his tracks. Standing at the entrance of the academy, he remained silent for a moment before he turned around and returned to the carriage. This action seemed as though he treasured Yiqing Qian a lot. But in Yiqing Luo's eyes, she only felt that Ling Fengning was completing a mission. A mission which he had discussed with Yiqing Qian. There were no feelings between them. Chapter 638. Standing by the side of the carriage, Ling Fengning didn't directly mount the horse. Instead, he stood on the spot and remained silent for quite a while, as his peripheral vision shot towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Then, he leaped onto his horse and led a group of people away in a grandiose manner. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed as she was slightly astonished. Eldest sister she. Yi Fengyu frowned as he thought of Yiqing Qian just now and couldn't help but have goosebumps. That kind of Yiqing Qian was totally different from the Yiqing Qian in his memories. Don't bother about her. Yiqing Luo ruffled Yi Fengyu's hair. Next time you see her, just avoid her. Now, she doesn't even want to wear that gentle mask anymore. She won't be soft-hearted towards you. Yi Fengyu was stunned. Alright, go in. Don't forget to report to Teacher Guiyu. Yiqing Luo patted his face, grabbed his shoulder and pushed him towards the school gate. Teacher Guiyu, you should be very interested in our 3 days of experience learning. Sister, what are you going to do? kids shouldn't ask too many questions. After sending Yi Fengyu away, Yiqing Luo didn't enter the academy but blended into the crowd and quietly disappeared from everyone's sight. Everyone's attention was focused on Yiqing Jian and Ling Fengying, so naturally no one noticed Yiqing Luo's disappearance. Yiqing Luo arrived at the back alley of the Heavenly Academy with ease. This was the place where she barged into when she first came to the Heavenly Academy. It was also here that he was assassinated by the triplets of Godless Island, the three evils of Godless. At this moment, the back alley was still silent, without the slightest sign of life. Yiqing Luo stopped at a dead end as her voice was chilly. "Aren't you looking for me? Why are you hiding? Are you worried about being discovered?" As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of light footsteps came from behind him. Following that, she heard Ling Fengying's gentle voice ringing behind her. "Yes, 7th Mississippi, what's the matter, second prince?" Yiqing Luo raised her brows and turned around with a playful smile. Earlier, before Ling Fengying mounted the horse and left, he specially took a look at her as his lips moved slightly. Yiqing Luo could read lips. He asked her to meet him in the back alley. Coincidentally, she also had something which she wanted to discuss with Ling Fengying. After all, the relationship between them could be considered to be a cooperative one. 7th young mistress of the night is so intelligent. You should understand why I am looking for you. Ling Fengying was indeed an intelligent man, and right now when he was conversing with Yiqing Luo, he had automatically changed his self-address to I, indicating his respect towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo covered her mouth and chuckled. Her eyes were glowing. "Second prince didn't say anything. No matter how intelligent I am, I'm not a roundworm in his stomach. Don't you have anything to ask me?" "Of course there is, but..." Yiqing Luo dragged her words. "Will you answer truthfully?" "Yes." Ling Fengying spat out a word without any hesitation. "I owe you a favor, so I will answer whatever questions you ask me." That pair of gentle eyes stared straight at Yiqing Luo, filled with sincerity. As though he was expressing his determination to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes in interest. To tell the truth, before this, she totally had no impression of Ling Fengying at all. It was just that when he was dealing with Ling Fenghua, he deliberately investigated whether there was anyone in the current imperial family who could be on par with Ling Fenghua. From the investigations, Ling Fengying was an extremely mediocre prince. His innate talent was average and his deeds were average. Especially under Ling Fenghua's intentional oppression, his entire person could be described as ordinary. As for her, choosing Ling Fengying was based on her direct observation towards the imperial family. Chapter 639. From what Yiqing Luo thought, Ling Fengying was much more dangerous than Ling Fenghua. The facts had proven that Yiqing Luo had guessed correctly based on her own view of the royal family. She had taken the right step. However, would their cooperation be affected because of Yiqing Qian? Yiqing Luo crossed her arms over her chest. "What's the relationship between you and Yiqing Qian?" "As you can see," Ling Fengying replied without any hesitation. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. "You call this an answer?" What did he mean by the relationship she saw? In other words, no matter what she thought, the relationship was there, and he wouldn't deny it or admit it. "You call that a truthful answer?" Ling Fengying smiled but didn't say a word. Yiqing Luo's eyes twitched as she turned around and left. 7th Miss Yi. Ling Fengying hurriedly blocked Yiqing Luo's way. Although his facial features were not outstanding, there was a unique charm to his gentle face. "I don't mean it in that way," Ling Fengying explained. A cold glint flashed past Yiqing Luo's eyes as she squinted at the arm in front of her. "If you don't have the sincerity to talk to me, then don't waste my time. I'm not that free to play riddles with you here." Ling Fengying was indeed a talent and his ability was much stronger than Ling Fenghua's. However, for so many years, under the oppression of Ling Fenghua, he was still able to form his own faction, and even after Ling Fenghua fell from power, he was able to obtain a voice of support. This also resulted in his habit of being cautious and secretive. At this point, towards Yi Qing Luo, who liked to be clean and decisive, it was extremely irritating. Since she had chosen to cooperate with Ling Fengying, she had already paved a path for Ling Fengying to quickly destroy Ling Fenghua. He would no longer cooperate with anyone else. Furthermore, in the entire imperial family, who else but him could threaten his position? There was no doubt that the position of crown prince belonged to Ling Fengying. From Yi Qing Luo's point of view, since they were working together, then they should choose to trust each other and work together happily. Whereas until now, Ling Fengying still harbored suspicions towards her. Since they didn't trust each other, there was no need to continue their partnership. Seventh young mistress of the night, of course, I sincerely want to talk to you. Ling Fengying gave a gentle smile as he put down the arm which was placed horizontally in front of Yi Qing Luo. I believe with 7th Miss Ye's intelligence, you will definitely be able to tell that Yi Qing Qian and I are not that kind of relationship. Reason. Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered to beat around the bush with him. Ling Fengying's eyelids drooped down as he shook his head. Forgive me for not being able to say. Can't say. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as her vision swept past his face, because you want Yi Qing Qian's power. Saying that, Ling Fengying looked at Yi Qing Luo in astonishment, as though he was in shock. How did she know? As expected, Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk slightly as her expression turned grave. That's right, who wouldn't want Yi Qing Qian's power? She was only a teenage girl, but she had already reached the earth-profound realm. If she trained well, with her talent, she would definitely become a rare genius girl in the world. Who didn't want to keep her for their own use? Especially, Yi Qing Qian still had the dark forces as her backing. Thinking about it. Hence, Yi Qing Qian made Ling Fengying sign a soul contract with the dark forces, using the power as bait, making use of Ling Fengying's identity and status to give herself a chance to make a comeback. The current Ling Fengying had just chased Ling Fenghua off the crown prince's position. He urgently needed to do something or use his own ability to prove that he was the only candidate for the crown prince's position. In this era where martial arts were revered and the strong were revered. Chapter 640. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh. The curve of her lips was extremely enchanting. Gu Pan's charming eyes raised slightly, outlining a long and narrow evil charm. Second Prince, let me give you a piece of advice. If you don't cultivate your strength on your own, even if you forcefully use it on yourself, it won't be yours in the end. Ling Fengying was stunned as a glint circulated in his eyes. He had totally not expected that before he even said anything, Yi Qing Luo had already guessed everything. Don't use this kind of judging gaze to size me up, I'm not your enemy. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes. Of course, we will not be in a cooperative relationship. Ling Fengying was just about to open his mouth when he stopped. 7th young Miss Yi, aren't we? The moment you got together with Yi Qing Qian, the cooperation between us had ended. Yi Qing Luo said straightforwardly, of course, you don't need to have any psychological burden. I will help you, not because I want to. Yes, at the end of the day, they were just using each other. Ling Fenghua wanted to harm her. Yi Qing Qian wanted to return the scheme to her. She wanted to retaliate, and it wasn't as simple as killing the other party. Instead, it was to crush the opponent's mentality and destroy the things that they cared about bit by bit. As for Ling Fengying, he was just a chess piece to destroy Ling Fenghua. 7th young Miss Yi. Ling Fengying's gentle brows creased slightly as his tone turned anxious. We can have a good talk. He was an intelligent man and naturally understood that if he became enemies with Yi Qing Luo, it would mean adding another strong opponent. His current foundation wasn't stable, and since Yiqing Luo was able to destroy Ling Fenghua, she naturally had the ability to destroy him. Ling Fengning had also heard from Yiqing Qian that Yiqing Luo was a person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. It was definitely unwise to make an enemy out of her at this critical juncture. Thinking of this, Ling Fengying's tone turned even gentler. "Seventh young miss, kindness towards me 2 days ago. I have always remembered it in my heart. Seventh young miss, please give me a chance to repay you, all right?" Not waiting for him to finish, Yiqing Luo had already interrupted him. "Let Yiqing Qian marry Ling Fenghua and leave Three Spring City together." Ling Fengying's eyes dimmed slightly as his fingers clenched into a fist. After a long while, he slowly shook his head. "Seventh miss, other than this, I can agree to any other request." Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly as she turned around and walked towards the front of the alley. Hearing the footsteps of the man behind her, she raised her hand and waved. "Apart from this request, I don't need your help." The footsteps stopped. Yiqing Luo continued, "You can be assured that I have no interest in your royal family's matters. You can do whatever you like, but..." She glanced sideways and her peripheral vision fell onto Ling Fengying as a cold intent flashed past her narrow and long eyes. "If your war implicates my people, then don't blame me for not showing any mercy." Ling Fengying was stunned on the spot. That gaze, even though it was only a glance, caused one to shudder with fear. "If people don't offend me, I won't offend them." This was what Yiqing Luo conveyed to him. As long as he or Yiqing Qian didn't offend her, she didn't have the time to go against them. This woman's personality was really hard to fathom. Ling Fengying clenched his fists tightly as he watched Yiqing Luo leave, before he silently left the back alley. After Yiqing Luo entered the academy, she didn't return to the devil class but headed straight towards the library pavilion. Today was the day when the students returned to the academy, and quite a number of students headed over to the library pavilion to borrow books to read, or to verify the homework which the masters had assigned for the past 3 days. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.